The events in the manga begin with a young lady listening to a couple of people asking to save them. It turns out to be a man over 30. He claims that this is the last request of the young lady's old father, and also asks if everything will not be resolved thanks to her intervention. The woman supports her husband and screams that they can survive if the girl sacrifices herself, but she makes the father fall to his knees. The young lady's brother asks if she wants to shame the family that raised her all this time, and she should live up to her name and become a heroine. There is only one thought spinning in the girl's head, and that is how tired she is of them, because her relatives talk such nonsense and are too noisy. The woman then asks if the young lady thinks that she feels good about sacrificing the daughter she raised with love, but now is the moment when she can repay their favor. The girl then, with a sarcastic smile on her face, asks what it means with love, and is it really true that for a woman, love means abandoning a child in an icy room without any attention? But how shameless they are. The young lady's family is shocked by these words, and the girl understands that this has happened more than once or twice. She turns to her relatives and tells them not to worry, but the girl herself does not understand why they are clinging to her. The young lady claims that she will save them, but she herself thinks that it is because no one will. Besides her, she will be able to stop the destruction of this world. The brunette has lived 99 different lives and the concept of their accumulation. Mysterious power also accumulates because saving the world at the cost of her life has never been such a great thing for her, and she does not regret it. However, he does not want to see boasting about the good deeds of shameless people. The father then, a little awkwardly, thanks his daughter and says that thanks to her, their family can live normally again. The girl is wondering when they will stop playing family because it doesn't work. The girl says that he even knelt down. Then he extends his hand, asking if he shouldn't pay a high price for this. Taking her staff in her hands, the young lady asserts that her life is pathetic and has not led to good times. Will stay with them. The woman asks what she is talking about, but at the same moment some article arrives at them, in which it is written that the heroine who will save the world had cruel parents. At the same moment, one of the servants bursts into the room and screams to the master that they have problems. After all, the imperial troops who decided to check the authenticity of the article invaded the mansion. The father then screams for the girl to come back right away because how dare she do this? Because she knows what will happen if she tarnishes the honor of the family. When the young lady is already moving away from them, she only hears how they call her ungrateful and thinks that it would be better if her first family were from a noble family. In their first life, parents considered starting a family simply one of the items on their life list. Unfortunately, 2 were born. The young lady and her brother lived in absolute indifference from their parents. Well, even though the girl was never loved by her family, she liked people because, like her parents, she was straightforward. Her affection was immediately noticeable, to friends who always lend a helping hand. But one terrible day, the last thing the main character saw was how her friend anxiously extended her hand, trying to save the girl. But unfortunately, this did not help, and the main character, lying on the asphalt and also looking at her friends, thought that thank God they were all right. So, on the threshold of her 20th birthday, she said goodbye to life without having enjoyed the completion of the entrance exams. However, this was purely her choice. In her next life, she found herself in a world on the verge of extinction. The only hope to prevent its destruction was to fall into eternal sleep. In one life, she sacrificed herself for her friends, and then every person shouted that it was her duty to sacrifice herself for them. Until her 5th or 6th life, she hoped every time that everything would be fine, but this is already the 99th time. When the girl grabs her staff, she thinks how boring this is, because even now there are no regrets in life. But the worst thing is to see how the world turns into chaos if the moment when destruction could have been prevented was missed. People looking at the sky in shock ask what is there, and the main character looking at them understands that she has such great power. She felt like they were blaming her for not saving them. And no matter how insensitive she becomes, she doesn't want to see something like this. And small children still have to live. The young lady rises higher and higher, with the understanding that in this life, she again did not live to be 20. 17 years is the average life expectancy of a girl. Using a spell, she asks for it all to end. The young lady understands that there is no hope, but such stupid desires are a matter of habit, after which the 99th death came. But opening her eyes again, the girl still saw the maids who congratulated the mistress and said that she had given birth to a girl. The main character understands that this is her 100th, but she hoped that this would all end because 100 is a 3-digit number. But if this is the basis of a new life, then we need to adapt and adapt. The girl understands that she doesn't see well and wonders what the maids are doing, and the girls at this time say how much the baby looks like a mistress. The main character then wonders if this is an aristocratic mansion, but she's starting to get nervous because she can't use her powers on her first birthday. When the woman is holding the baby, the maids say how cute she is, but suddenly someone else bursts into the room. The maid then asks if the master has come, and they say that he has such a beautiful daughter. The main character then tries to look at her father, but when she directs her gaze at him, she gets very scared. For the first time, when she saw his face, she thought that this life would ruin her. When the father already reaches out his hand to the baby, she becomes very frightened and wonders whether she will plunge into eternal sleep immediately after birth. But when this world is again on the verge of destruction, she will not be able to do anything, and most likely will only be able to look at the chaos, how lives disappear before our eyes and souls scatter like dust. The girl will only watch this as if it were a nightmare from which she will not be able to wake up, and it will continue until the world takes its last breath. The main character would like to live and experience all the torment herself. But suddenly, the little girl feels her father simply touching her cheek and does not understand what just happened. The man with pink hair only thanks their youngest with tears of joy for the fact that she was born safely. The main character is then in complete shock and does not understand what is happening. And when she looks up, she sees her mother, who is also very happy. And the little girl doesn't understand why they have such happy faces and how everything suddenly changed. The young lady's mother says the baby looks just like her. And the main character thinks that if everything is really normal there, then perhaps her 100th life will be quiet and calm. While the baby's parents are talking to each other, the girl is watching this. And a second later, they already call her Anastasia. The main character thinks it's a pretty nice name. And the girl's parents also add that this is the name of the heroine who saved their world. Anastasia then realizes in shock that every time the heroine's name was mentioned, then her life was like a gutter, and she's already tired of it. So the girl wonders if she will sacrifice herself again and become a savior. But how stupid she was when she expected that this time everything would be different, because everything on the contrary was worse and it was annoying. While the baby is being held by the father, someone else enters the room. It turns out to be a girl with pink hair and asks if it's her sister. A little time later, the main character is already lying in bed and thinks that, surprisingly, nothing special happened. And the baby was ready for a heroic name, but she understands that it's too early to exhale. After all, this was the case in a past life. Her father said that a child with a heroic name is blessed by God. And he pretended to be good, but in the end, he began to mock her, afraid of her powers, as if he wanted to check how helpless she was in front of her parents. And these parents also gave her the name of the heroine precisely in order to sacrifice her. And there is nothing left but to be on the alert. The girl did everything to understand the surrounding situation. A woman with jet black hair and bright red eyes is the mother of the main character in this life, and when she rocks the baby, then she immediately falls asleep, so you have to be careful because you never know when you might fall into a trap. And the pink-haired man with the appearance of a wolf and the size of a whole mountain is her father. The man turns to his daughter with a smile and asks if she has forgotten her dad yet, because he rarely sees his face. The baby thinks that he is talking to her in a strange voice and wonders whether this is psychological pressure. The baby also noticed that there was always someone near the cradle. So they must be watching over a newborn baby, and this family is pretty scary. But suddenly the girl hears someone approaching and wonders if it's the Duchess. But being an aristocrat is even more annoying. However, hearing that the sounds are getting louder, the girl turns her head and thinks what is happening there. It turns out to be the young lady's father. He asks what the problem is because their daughter. The main character does not hear what he says next, but she understands that he is talking about her, and the girl also thinks that her father is really angry with her, but they will soon come there. The young lady's father then cries out and asks why, if their baby is not sick, she does not cry or laugh. And the main character, in shock, wonders if her father made such a fuss just because she didn't cry. The man with pink hair then says that it's clear, and the doctor doesn't know the reason because he's incompetent, so nothing can be done. And there is no other choice but to get rid of this useless head. The main character then thinks in shock what he is doing and whether he will plunge a person into eternal sleep just because the child does not cry, and the girl wonders if this is a new type of torture. In her past life, the young lady's parents hated to hear her cry, and she did not cry so as not to be put into eternal sleep. And the girl thinks that there is nothing to worry about because life is more valuable to her. At this time, the doctor, with tears in his eyes, screams that he checked everything thoroughly and the lady is truly completely healthy. The main character, hearing this, understands that the doctor makes her feel guilty, so she decides to save him after all and thinks that she is quite healthy, so let her father not touch the innocent man. At the same moment, the baby begins to cry, and the father turns around in shock from what he heard. He immediately smiles and runs up to his daughter, after which he takes her in his arms and says that their baby has such a ringing voice. The main character thinks, is he really happy, because until now, when she screamed loudly, bad things happened. And she doesn't understand why this man has such a happy face, but the girl still understands that she needs to be on guard, but she cannot stop crying. When the father took the young lady in his arms, she saw someone else's gaze, and she wonders if it's her older sister. The girl understands that since she was called the youngest, she assumed that she had brothers or sisters, but until this moment she had not met them, and now she is more worried than happy. After all, because of her special abilities in a past life, her brother got all the attention, and she was not a favorite child. Now looking at the baby, she understands that she shouldn't give in to those cute puffy cheeks, because if the girl gets upset or cries, then of course her parents will listen to her. While the little girl is still glaring at the main character, she seems to freeze in anticipation. And then the girl with pink hair starts talking and asks if it's true. This baby is her little sister because she is so cute. The main character then looks at her older sister in shock, and she jumps in the arms of the baby and says with admiration that she has such a beautiful sister, after which she turns to her father and says that she and Asia want pudding. And the man then asks what it means with Asia, after which the little girl says that Laurencia is Lara, and Anastasia will be shortened to Asia. The main character then thinks, what kind of cute behavior is this? And she doesn't like it at all, so she waves her little hands. But her relatives perceive this gesture differently, and her father, with a smile on his face, asks if Anastasia likes this nickname. The girl understands that she doesn't like it at all. The man with pink hair says that he perfectly understands the baby's good intentions, but Anastasia is still small and she can't have pudding. After which he pats his daughter on the head and says that if she eats for two, then he is sure that the girl will be happy. But Lara says that if she eats everything alone, then Asya will be upset, and her father asks why. And the little girl then says that she was recently sick and only ate soups, so she was very sad that she couldn't eat sorbet. The main character then thinks whether her sister is worried that she will be upset. And the little girl with pink hair asks if the girl can eat just one piece. The main character at this time understands that if she eats this, she will die immediately. But when her sister brings the dessert even closer, the little girl in her thoughts asks her father to do something. But he only approaches the baby and asks what she is saying, after which he claims that Dad heard everything. The main character thinks what he is doing. And the man then turns to his daughter and says that the little girl said, "Let Laurencia eat all the delicious things alone," which makes the little girl ask if it's true. And at that very second, he eats dessert and then apologizes. She hands her fawn to the baby and says that then she will lend her toy. The father turns to Lawrence and asks if everything will be okay because she cannot sleep without the fawn. But the little girl says that yes, Asya is her younger sister, so since she is older, she must share. The main character, in complete shock from such words, understands that this cannot be. After which she screams and realizes that she cannot remain vigilant and that they should not be so kind to her. The baby then worriedly asks Asya if she really doesn't like the fawn, and the main character in her thoughts asks them to hate her like other families did in a past life. But the lady with pink hair just stretches out her hands to the girls and asks if she likes rabbits or tigers. These should be for her, so don't let the baby cry. Anastasia then thinks in shock why the girl doesn't hate her, but she just tells Asya to look at her. When the main character looks at the girl, she sees that she has closed her eyes. But at the same moment, the baby opens them and makes a funny face, from which the young lady cannot help but laugh, but at the same moment the girl realizes that she has lowered her guard. However, it is too late again. Her father and sister with puppy eyes look at her and admire her, and the main character realizes that she has failed. After this, rumors that Anastasia smiled while playing peekaboo with her sister spread with incredible speed. The maids did what they tried to make the mistress laugh in the same ways, and even the chief doctor did his best. The man claimed that when he played with his daughter, she immediately laughed even if she had just cried. And the main character understands that naturally her father went the same way and tried to make a face. Of course, the mother chased everyone away, saying to give the baby a rest. Now the main character, holding on to her mother's dress, understands that she has never seen such enemies and does not know what to do. Give up or get angry when they behave like this. The young lady's father is still in the corridor asking the servants if the little girl smiled, and the doctor says that he will try harder too. The young lady at this time is thinking why they are going out of their way. She just can't understand it. In the afternoon, another visitor came to the baby. It turned out to be a boy with pink hair who asked Anastasia if she was awake. The girl was a little scared when she saw her brother. She realizes that he is Damien's 5-year-old older brother, who, despite his young age, receives an education as the heir to the dukedom. The girl thinks that he is busy, so why did he come to her and not understanding whether she should be vigilant with him? But the boy only turns to Anastasia and asks what she is thinking about, after which the little girl does not understand how she can survive. And Damien at this time says that the girl made such a serious face, but a gift will come to her. After such words, the main character becomes a little wary and thinks that this is a little strange, because why does everyone want to give her something, and this is very suspicious? When the baby sees some claws, she gets a little scared. But then he realizes that it is just a toy tiger. The boy claims that this is his toy, and Laurentia said that in order for the baby to smile, you need to make an interesting grimace. But she also mentioned his tiger, and the boy was sad because he spent his entire childhood with him, but he still decided to give him to Anastasia. The main character understands that for him this is not just a toy, so why does he give her such a valuable thing? But the boy just strokes her head and asks if she will show it. Baby, give him your smile. The main character then thinks about the radiator, whether he gave such value. And do all these people really want to see her smile? But even her brother and sister are ready to sacrifice a lot for this. And the main character doesn't understand how this can be so important, and whether it's all about protecting the whole world. But then she still can't hold back her smile and sincerely raises the corners of her lips. The boy is surprised by this, and then delighted and cries out that Anastasia really smiled at them. Looking at the joyful face of her brother, the main character realizes that over many lives she has learned to always be on her guard. But since today is such a good day, you can believe in a miracle just once. When her family heard that the baby was smiling, they immediately came, and the main character understands that even though she has been disappointed many times, she will still hope for her 100th life and that these people will not turn their backs on her. The girl will live with this desire. A short time later, she had already tried on many outfits. And having selected the best of them, the maid said how cute their lady is because she's like a snow fairy. The young lady's mother also picks her up and says that the girl is like an angel. Then he says that they are buying everything and let them pay the tailor 4 times more for these clothes. The baby then realizes in shock that she doesn't even know how to react to this, but it started a few weeks ago. In the 5th month of her birth, she was finally able to see more than the cradle. Even though she crawls on her stomach, thanks to this she has climbed a lot of places. And even though she still gurgles, she can still say a few words the next time she tries to say something. She notices her father in front of her, who is also already lying on the floor, and asks what she is saying, and only says that she loves Dad. The girl immediately crawls to the other side and realizes that she still cannot pronounce these words normally. She understands that she really is like an ordinary child, and if there is a threat to her life, she will not be able to escape because all her strength is drained by creep. But the little girl understands that so far everything is surprisingly peaceful. But what is even more amazing? So this is this family. When the baby looks to the side, she sees not only her father there. Her older sister screams joyfully that Asya has turned over, and the father says with admiration that this is really so. The brother claims that their youngest is very agile, and it seems that she turned over earlier than ordinary children. And the woman says that her son seemed to have taken it off her tongue, and that Anastasia is undoubtedly extraordinary. So they decided to throw a celebratory party in honor of her first coup. And now, sitting on a chair, the main character understands that this is the first party in her life on the occasion of turning on her back. The girl understands that this event is only for family members, but she still doesn't understand why it is so large-scale. The boy, holding the box in his hands, says that this is a gift for Anastasia, and the doctor, with tears in his eyes, tells the lady that he is very glad that she is growing healthy. Then someone else turns to the young lady, and when the little girl turns around, she sees the maid there. The woman says that the baby did a great job with the rollover and it's amazing. The maid also says that she is happy to serve the mistress. The main character then understands that they say that when there are parties, the participants also receive bonuses. But this is just the baby's first turn, so why all the fuss? But here, everything seems unusual to her. They all have excessive affection, and the more they care, the more the main character worries. When this family went outside, the young lady noticed that fireworks were being set off there, and looking at them, the baby felt better. Suddenly, the young lady's mother turns to Anastasia, and he says that from this day on, let her grow big and healthy. The baby understands that she doesn't need to be good or successful and just needs to be healthy. But the girl doesn't understand what it all means because these words sounded innocent. The next day, the girl found herself in the room in complete silence, and he understands that yesterday there was a lot of noise, and today there is silence. After yesterday's party, vacation began for the maids, after which they said goodbye to the mistress and asked if she would grow up too quickly because they would be back soon. And only one maid did not leave. The main character, looking at her, understands that she is most likely not even 20, and that the maid is now dozing. Well, this is understandable because children need to sleep well in order to grow, and this is probably due to the high busyness at the end of the city. But even the parents left early and the house was empty. The young lady's brother sits quietly in class, while sister is sick and has to rest. The main character thinks that this is great and such an opportunity rarely comes along. But at such moments you need to practice getting on your feet, and the baby's goal is to climb onto the chair. The girl understands that she was told not to grow too fast, but she already really wants to walk. And when she reaches for the chair, she realizes that there is still a little bit left. Well, suddenly someone picks up the baby in his arms, and you happen to be one of the maids, and she asks if the girl is having a good time. The main character, when she looks at the maid, and thinks that she is seeing her for the first time. The woman at this time says that the lady ordered to bring it, and the girl is a little surprised and thinks that her mother is not away now. But the woman won't even wake up the maid. The main character then realizes that she has already gone through this once or twice, and this situation is very suspicious, so there is no other way out. After which the baby immediately starts screaming and the maid is a little scared, and at the same moment he closes the baby's mouth. Then he says, with an evil smile on his face, that it's good to take care of her. While the main character's powers are starting to leave her, she thinks that it was too calm, and the maid tells her to get some sleep. A short time later, the girl feels shaking, discomfort, and strange sounds, after which she immediately opens her eyes and sees in front of her no longer the woman who took her, but a man who is running as fast as he can, so the main character thinks that she has really been kidnapped. Looking behind the man's back, the little girl sees, believe me, and understands that, fortunately, he still has not far to run away. But the little girl thinks she was too careless. But you should have been more wary of your surroundings. But the girl thinks that she needs to pull herself together and be glad that it's just a kidnapping. After all, everything could have been much worse and she would have had to watch it again. The girl clenches her fist and understands that she is only 6 months old, and in such a situation she could not do anything. So she does not understand what will happen now, and maybe she will be able to find out her destination. The girl understands that this is a little stressful, but she will be able to use the power of teleportation. But she is curious why she was kidnapped, because this is a crime directed against the Duke. Or they could find out about her power, but in any case the risk is worth it to find out the truth, and the girl wonders whether she can split them in 1 or 3 days. But the little girl understands that during this time she will not be able to return home. However, she will try to resolve everything as soon as possible because she doesn't want the family to worry too much. Therefore, send a message through a dream that he will return soon, and then they will be much calmer. But suddenly an arrow hits the guy carrying the young lady in the leg, and he collapses to the floor in pain. The man is shocked and wonders what it is, but suddenly someone tells him to shut up. The baby thinks that she is in pain from hitting the floor, but she hears a child's voice. And when he turns around, he sees a boy with blonde hair pointing a ball at the man and asking what he is doing now. After all, this lady has a meeting with him today. The main character leading the boy does not understand who he is, and the man asks if this is the Duke's son, after which he immediately gets up and screams for the boy to get out of the way. The main character thinks that she is seeing this guy for the first time when the rest of the knights come up to the blonde and scream that the younger duchess is with that man. The man, running further and further, wonders if he has already been noticed. But so little time has passed. Well, suddenly someone catches up with the attacker and says that if he doesn't want to fight, then he should just hand over the mistress. The man tells the boy to stop following him because he has his own reasons. Well, the blonde then coldly says that if he tries to justify himself, he will really kill him. Anastasia understands that this guy seems to be the same age as her brother, but he is so fierce. But the girl understands that this cannot be considered just window dressing because the guy holds the ball firmly and correctly. And besides, this boy has magic, and his magical energy is so strong that it reaches the ball. So the girl does not understand who he is. But the guy just takes out his ball and attacks the man, after which he collapses to the floor. The main character sees that they are falling and thinks that this is too much, but she will have to use protective magic. But at the last moment, when she should already be in contact with the floor, who understands that this is not happening. When she opens her eyes, she sees that she is in the hands of that same boy, and he asks how the baby is feeling. He also asks if she was very scared and if she hurts anywhere. But if she doesn't cry, then most likely everything is fine. The girl realizes that she is fine, but then she sees that the man behind him is starting to get up. And the main character thinks that he should be vigilant because even if he is good in battle, he is still a child. After which the baby realizes that nothing can be done anyway and uses her power. While the blonde takes out his sword, the main character already manages to wound the attacker. The boy is then surprised and says that he didn't do anything and the man had already fallen. Then he looks at the main character and is a little surprised. The baby feels simply disgusting. Her lungs seem to be crushed, and the girl thinks that she needs to be more careful in using force in a child's body. The guy then excitedly asks what happened and if the baby was scared, and also if she was cold, but the girl thinks that he was the most scared there. The guy begins to take off his cape and then wraps it around the baby, and he claims that everything is fine because it will soon become warm. The girl then thinks that this cape is quite soft, but she still feels pain after using magic. At this time, the knights are already grabbing the villain, and her brother runs up to the young lady. He excitedly calls Anastasia and tells her to open her eyes because her brother has come. The man who kidnapped the girl will beg the gentleman to almost her children because he had reasons, so he asks to listen to him. The main character at this time cannot stand all the pain and falls into sleep. The main character's brother, seeing his sister in such a deplorable state, says that the man will go with them, and before his father returns, he will find out everything. A little time later, the main character hears her mother say that she thought it was too early since the baby was still small. But if something like this happened, she needed to act. The man says that for the sake of the children, he will try to do everything as soon as possible. And at this time, the young lady opens her eyes and thinks how long she slept. But the first thing she saw was her worried parents, and the little girl wondered if it was Mom and Dad. Those who have been screaming for a second that Anastasia has woken up and should immediately call a doctor in Luga. Then, looking at his daughter, the father asks if their baby was very scared. But Dad was supposed to be nearby, but he thought that the order to His Majesty was more important. The main character thinks that the order is really more important because her father is a duke. The girl remembers that she lost consciousness only because she spent a lot of energy, and her body reacted this way only because she was unprepared. But suddenly the main character hears her parents apologizing and is a little surprised by this. When she looks at their regretful expressions, she thinks that these people are so kind to her, and she doesn't want to hurt them. The girl thinks that she needs to grow up quickly. A little time later, the young lady is already in front of a whole detachment of knights who on their knees cry out that they will be faithful to their mistress. The little girl thinks who all these people are, and her father says that now they will protect her, and asks if the girl thinks that there are enough of them. The main character understands that the reason for the kidnapping was very banal, because the son of a maid working in the mansion had unbearable debts, and people, mired in debt, saw how her parents spent a lot of money on her. So they foolishly decided to kidnap her while on vacation and exchange her for money. But fortunately, the young lady's elder brother's friend quickly found them and stopped them. The kidnappers were said to have been kicked out of the mansion with fractures in several places and were also said to have been lenient with their parents. But the girl in any case thinks that guards are a good solution for her sister and brother. But introducing 20 people to the little one is too much. The young lady's father turns to Anastasia and says that these are knights who have sworn allegiance to her. So let her say something approving to them. The main character then thinks in shock that it's a pity a child can say at 6 months, and who would be happy with words of encouragement from a child. But suddenly she sees how the knights immediately worry that they will try. All of them with determination once again assert that they will try, and the main character understands that they are already happy. But she still can't understand them, after which she looks away. And she coos, but by this she means that the knights will take care of her. The whole squad is embarrassed by this, and then screams that they will do everything possible to take care of the lady, and the main character understands that it is time to realize reality. A month has passed since the oath of knights, and 2 people are guarding her room from the inside, and 2 more are outside. The girl understands that the older she gets, the easier it is for her to get to inaccessible places, and in a year it will be even easier. But she is still 7 months old. The last kidnapping was just for money, but it looks like her 7 will often be put in an awkward position. After all, on the day of the abduction, her parents left with a tense expression on their faces. And usually they don't leave home together at once because this Hertz family is ready. They definitely have enemies. After all, it would be wrong if the children were not presented with guards, and there are no other reasons to place only knights. The main character then thinks whether she should now try to use the power, but within the limits of her capabilities, but then she realizes that it is better not to do this. After all, if she has a high fever again, her parents will start to worry, and she doesn't want to see those faces. But the baby also does not want to sit idle, because it is she who has the responsibility to stop the fall of the world. When the girl is already grabbing the chair, someone asks where she is in such a hurry, and the little girl thinks that this is a very familiar voice. When she turns around, she sees her brother, who opens his arms for a hug, after which the baby begins to crawl towards him, and a little time later they are hugging. The guy says that his sister crawled up so quickly, but their Anastasia is already so big. The main character understands that this is a child telling her. When the brother strokes the little girl's head, she thinks that his facial expression is different from usual. The boy tells Anastasia that his friend wants to see her, and she has already met him. The main character then realizes that it is the blonde man and just nods his head. The young lady's brother then asks if she wants to meet him one more time, and the little girl agrees. The girl understands that she was just worried about this because the boy has magic, and he is definitely a stranger to her, but she feels as if she knows him. If you are reborn often, you can meet acquaintances in other worlds. Because each human soul has its own waves, and usually when meeting a familiar soul, it did not pay attention to it. But this boy is not just an acquaintance because she feels this strange feeling of melancholy. And the girl understands that this is a great chance because she needs to find out who that boy really is. The brother, seeing his sister's reaction, is silent for a bit, and then says that it seems that Mikale has captivated his sister. At this time, someone informs the younger duke that they have arrived, and the blonde says that time flew by quickly, after which he gets out of the carriage and speaks, that then he will go to meet the Duchess. A little time later, he already entered the room with the Duchess and said that they had finally met. The baby sits on a chair near 2 maids and realizes that he has come, and the blonde man then approaches the baby and says that it's surprising because she's so small, after which they lock eyes. And the girl thinks that she seems to remember something, but cannot remember. But in 2,000 years she has met only a few such people and should immediately recognize them. The young lady's brother asks Mikale what he is doing because he didn't even say hello, and the guy just waves his hand in front of the baby, after which the young man quarrels with different hair and says that their Anastasia is not a doll for him, and the blonde says that the baby is still a child. The young lady's brother then approaches her and tells the guy not to call Anastasia that because she is the youngest Duchess. The main character wonders if her brother is too excited, and after the blonde laughs, Damien asks why he laughed, and the little girl realizes that her brother is acting like a child. The girl thought that he was calmness itself, but she was glad to see him when he corresponded to his age. The blonde then says that one way or another he should introduce himself, after which he approaches the girl, and he takes her hand in his, claiming that he is glad to meet the younger Duchess, and that he himself is Mikale Leventis from the Archduke's family, after which the boy kisses the young lady's hand, which makes the little girl and her brother very surprised. Mikale Leventis is the only heir of the Archduke, and after the first meeting, he spent more than half a month at their home. Since the current Archduke is very busy with political affairs, the boy decided to study together with his childhood friend, and thanks to this, Mikale has recently occupied all the attention of the maids. They talk about him even more than about their family, and now the maid, who is near the young lady, says that the boys came today. The main character, seeing the guy, understands that he is definitely only friends with her brother, but she does not understand why he comes to her so often. The baby realizes that today he arrived earlier than usual, and the blonde runs up to the girl and asks if she is doing well. When the guy runs closer, the little girl feels that something has dripped on her and wonders if this water is a little cold. Mikale then, with wet hair from which water is dripping, apologizes and asks if it was dripping on her, but then claims that he could not come to the Duchess in an inappropriate manner, so he washed himself. The main character thinks that he moves beautifully and does not look like a 6-year-old boy, but in fact he is still a child. And the guy then takes out a beautiful red stone, which costs quite a lot, and asks the little girl if she will smile if he gives it to her. The main character understands that the young man with blonde hair is back on his own, and thinks that for some time now, endless gifts have begun in order to make her smile. A few days ago, the boy asked why the girl didn't smile, and the maid seemed to proudly tell the Duke that few people had seen the smile of their youngest Duchess. He needs to get close to her well. Then perhaps he will see this smile because the baby does not show it to anyone, and so far only a few lucky ones have seen it. The guy then asked if it was true, and from that very day the young man with blonde hair began to look for something that she would like. But he couldn't do it. And the young lady's brother said that it was useless because Anastasia only smiled at him, and the young lady's sister with a smile on her face and confidence said that she did too. The guy got a little angry from this and succumbed to an innocent provocation from his brother and sister, after which, as soon as time appeared, he came with jewelry and gave them to the main character. But he still didn't succeed, and now, sitting on the floor, the young lady thinks who gives this to children and sighs as if she doesn't want to have a conversation with him anymore. And the guy then asks, a little surprised, if babies sigh too. The main character thinks that she seems to have begun to grow slower and does not understand whether this could be because of him. But this is a stupid excuse, but she noticed that she cannot use magic. The boy, looking at the young lady, thinks that she would look cute if she took this pebble, after which a wonderful idea appears in his head. And at this time, the baby is still trying to learn to walk and worry because she still can't do it, and people here are not rushing her because they don't want to strain the main character and take care of her. The baby understands that this is her 100th time in the body of a child and wonders if she can hesitate, because at any moment something bad could happen, like that time with the robber. However, suddenly, Mikale puts a red ruby in the young lady's hood, which makes her a little surprised because she suddenly feels a heaviness in her head and loses her balance. And at the same moment, he begins to collapse on the floor, not understanding what happened. The maid screams out her mistress's name in shock and immediately tries to get closer to her and have time to grab the baby to her. And the blonde man is no less surprised and immediately runs up to her. But at that moment, the girl already falls to the ground. And the guy only manages to save her head from the blow, after which the pebble rolls a little further. The maid at the same moment runs up to the young lady and asks if the mistress is safe. The main character wonders if she really lost her balance because everything happened in a rather strange way, and her head suddenly became heavy. The blonde then turns to the young lady and apologizes, after which he claims that he wanted to give her the pebble, but did not know that she would fall. The main character then looks at the guy in shock and sees that same pebble not far from you. The girl understands that the moment she stood up, her head suddenly became heavier, and it was Mikale who put the ruby in her hood. The little girl then clenches her fists and thinks how brazen it is, and also thinks whether the guy wanted to shame her. After which the girl screams that they hate the guy, but since she cannot talk, it only turns out something similar. The maid is then shocked, and the blonde is no less. He asks the young lady if she hates him, and she just turns away and tells him to go away, but she still can't say it properly. The guy then asks why the little girl is chasing him away, because of course he made a mistake because he put the ruby in too big, but he just thought that it would suit the girl. The maids then talk to each other, and one of them claims that it's amazing how the guy understood what the little girl wanted to say, and the other maid says that it's true. The little girl looking at the blonde thinks that this is even more annoying because her family cannot understand, but this boy does it so easily. But sister and brother will be upset when they find out. But this guy also saved her. And although he showed nobility, she does not want to upset the family anymore, so the girl completely turns away from him. The guy then asks if she wants to learn to walk, because if so, he will help us. The baby tries to say that she doesn't want to. And the blonde then says that she speaks well for a child and asks how she does it. The little girl thinks that it's annoying that he thinks she's too small, and the guy says that he really can help, because not even 6 months have passed since he started walking. The baby then wonders in shock whether he really learned to walk at 6 months, because now she hasn't even really learned to stand at 7 months. The guy claims that he was great at it as a child, and asks if the little girl really doesn't want to learn. The girl thinks this is incredible, but this offer is very tempting, and this is the first time she is growing up in normal conditions, so she doesn't know how to be a child and wants to stop crawling. But she still does not want to receive help from this nasty boy again. The guy just extends his hand and says that he will teach her. With a smile on his face, he waits for an answer from the little girl, and she wonders why he's smiling. And the girl also doesn't understand why he now reminds her so much of her brother. After which she extends her hand and thinks that she is accepting help not because the guy looks like his brother, but because she wants to grow up quickly. The maid, seeing how the little girl extends her hand to Mikale, is a little surprised, and the main character, looking at the blonde and his smile, thinks that this is the first time she has seen such an expression on her face. The girl stares at the guy for a bit, but then realizes that she needs to remain vigilant. And he pats Togo's hands, wanting to learn to walk as soon as possible. The boy says that he understands and will help her get up and move around too, after which he lifts the baby. To the surprise of the main character, she was able to get up. The little girl wonders if he made her stand so easily, and the blonde then claims that he said that he would help her, and the little girl understands that he was right, but does not understand how he did it. And the guy at this time says that since she got up, she can walk. The baby is a little surprised by this and thinks that it's impossible to do this right away. But when she takes the first step, she is even more surprised and realizes that she is really walking now. The girl thinks that she has finally learned to walk and smiles, and the maids then say in shock that they saw with their own eyes the mistress's first steps. Just then, someone drops his book on the floor, and it turns out to be the young lady's brother. He, seeing his sister taking her first steps with his friend, is completely confused. The main character wonders if classes are already over, and the blonde then turns to his friend and tells him to look, because the Duchess is holding on to him and walking perfectly. Anastasia understands that her brother is in shock and tries to escape from Mikhail's hands, but he says that it's better for the baby not to do that. Otherwise she might flop again, which makes the young lady's brother very surprised and, clenching his fists, asks what this means. Damien immediately takes his sister in his arms and asks Anastasia if she fell. The maid claims that it wasn't much and she didn't even cry, and the young man with pink hair says that she fell. The blonde then tells Damien that this is all because of him, and he wanted to give her a gift, but a young man with pink hair breaks through his friend and asks if his sister fell because of him. The blonde then says that she didn't completely fall because he saved the girl's head, but the young lady's brother then asks if she could have hit her head. The main character understands that this is not for the best, and Damien then tells Mikale Leventis that from today he forbids him to see Anastasia. The blonde then says that he didn't want to, and the girl really didn't want to. But the young lady's brother doesn't let him finish and just screams for him to leave because if it weren't for him, the little girl wouldn't be in danger. Why does the guy don't know what to say, and the main character's brother just turns away? The baby understands that these two had a serious quarrel, and the blonde then only looks sadly and says that it is true and good that Damien has a sister. The guy with pink hair then turns around in surprise because he didn't want to offend his friend at all, and the main character thinks how everything turned out this way, and it would be better if they were both ordinary children. But unlike their peers, these two look more like immature adults. And in such a situation, the adult child does not know what is best to do. And if everything is left this way, the situation will worsen, and she does not want this, but she cannot do anything. The main character understands that there is no choice left, except how to solve everything that way. The girl realizes that Damien's situation is that after school he likes to read books with his little sisters. And from his soothing voice, everyone falls into a daytime sleep, and the rumbling of Laverencia's stomach, like an alarm clock, will be their snack, and this is the most favorite moment in the guy's life. But after Mikale saved his sister, he lost this moment. And Mikale's situation is that he is the only member of his family. Grandfather is a constantly busy grandfather, and he saw a small child for the first time, so he was very surprised. And I also didn't know how to handle it. Before that, he spent almost all his time with balls and there was no malicious intent on his part. After all, he simply didn't know anything. Anastasia's situation is this: that in the end, it was all because of her. That day, the guy was so annoying to her that she said one word. The girl said something similar to "Go away, Mikale," but the boy understood everything and asked if the little girl was telling him to go. But then he asked in surprise if she had just said his name. And the main character understood that this was the beginning of the trouble, because the fact that the first name she called was his, and not someone from the family, upset everyone. So they asked to pronounce their names all day. And even the first steps were with Mikale, so the girl thinks how upset her brother was and understands that all the blame lies with her. And now you have to use that method because there is no other way out. After which the baby takes in air and screams with all her might. The maid immediately runs up to the mistress, and the two guys are very worried about the baby. The girl then tries to say something through her tears, but her brother doesn't understand anything, so he turns to Mikale. The blonde then claims that the girl is very scared and she doesn't like it. And the young lady's brother is shocked by such words, after which he immediately turns to Anastasia and says that it is his brother's fault. The blonde claims that he was also wrong, and the main character thinks that they should apologize not to her, but to each other, after which she grabs her brother by the clothes and points at the blonde. The young lady's brother then approaches him, and Mikale apologizes to Damien for putting his precious sister in danger. The boy with pink hair then also apologizes and says that he shouldn't have said that, but he saw that they were having fun together, so he said so. The maid, looking at this, feels relieved, and the blonde then claims that he does not know how to communicate with children. So, a little embarrassed, he asks if Damien can teach him. The young man with pink hair was a little worried because of what was said earlier. He is weak and doesn't even know what to say about the blonde. He says that he really doesn't know, so he asks to teach him. But he respected his sister, and I believe the guy said not to touch her, so he didn't do it without permission. The baby understands that that's why he didn't catch her that time. And the blonde now turns to his friend and says that he doesn't know what could be dangerous for the baby, and therefore asks Damien to help. The boy with pink hair is a little surprised by such a request, but then smiles and says that, of course, it will help, because the guy is his friend. After which they shake hands, and the blonde asks if they have made peace, and when his friend answers in that place, Mikale asks if he can continue to come there. The boy with pink hair says that, of course, after which Mikale smiles sincerely. The main character, looking at all this, thinks that they are so noble, like from a picture, but she had not cried for so long that she was very tired and her eyelids became heavy. Therefore, the baby thinks that nothing will happen if she sleeps a little. But at the same moment when the girl falls into sleep, she realizes that she is in some strange place. The baby understands that she fell asleep in her brother's arms, but now she is in a different place and it must be a dream. The main character thinks that she needs to wake up, but suddenly she hears someone asking for salvation. The baby immediately turns to this voice and sees some kind of cocoon behind her, all wrapped in chains. The girl doesn't understand what it is, but her subconscious doesn't listen, and her body begins to move on its own. Walking towards the strange things, the little girl thinks what this huge something is, and it can't be alive. And when she is already a meter away from him, she thinks what it is. But he begins to speak and claims that he is the only one who understands her. The main character in her thoughts asks her hands to stop and does not understand how something can understand her, the menu, or whether it has been reborn 200 times. When the baby touches this something, the white fabric begins to unwind, and the baby even covers her eyes with her hands, but when she finally decides to look, he sees it in front of him, another child, and he only tells Anastasia not to forget that he is the only one and then flies up to the baby. But when he is already holding out his hands, he suddenly stops, after which she turns around and says that interference has arisen again, and the main character hears snatches of someone's words. But suddenly she wakes up and realizes that these are her parents, and in front of her she also sees Mikale with a blue ball. The main character, seeing how excited her relatives are, thinks why they are all there. The young lady's mother, with tears in her eyes, tells the little ones that the fever has not subsided for a week and asks if she can imagine how they are worried. And the little girl then wonders if she was unconscious for a week. This time, the young lady's sister tells Asya that she will be sick instead of her, and her brother then says Lawrence, and that then he will be sick instead of her. The father then hugs his children and says that he would rather accept the pain for all of them. Mikale just silently watches all this, and then looks away. Well, suddenly he feels as soon as he puts a hand on his head. This turns out to be the father of the main character, and he thanks Mikale, claiming that it is all thanks to him. The boy then says that this is the only thing he could do. But the Duke only ruffles his hair and claims that there is no need to be modest. After all, this week was hell for them, and the guy brought with him a family treasure. The Duke claims that it turns out that someone cursed Anastasia because they were so afraid of the doctor's words. But thanks to this treasure, Anastasia woke up. The young lady's mother also thanks Mikale, and the main character, looking at the guy, thinks that he has come such a long way, and she is again in his debt from the time when he saved her from the kidnapper. But then the main character thinks about what kind of curse they were talking about because she has lived countless lives and has developed immunity to such treachery. But something pulled her into that dream, and this creature could easily wipe out all her accumulated strength, so the little girl understands that she knew that her 100th life would not be calm. It was so good there that the girl briefly forgot about her fate and the purpose of saving someone or something, and in order to properly use her power, she needs to grow up quickly and also repay her debts. The young lady's mother turns to Anastasia and asks her to be healthy. The main character understands that first of all she must play the role of the youngest. Within a month, for the first time in many years, she fell asleep peacefully and the matter grew. Even a small use of force led to an increase in temperature. Fortunately, the girl no longer met any invited guests in her dreams, and time is still passing, and now the young lady is already 9 months old. The father opens his arms for a hug and tells the little girl to come to him. The girl, holding onto the chair, looks at her father and then decides that she can do it, after which she takes one step at a time and begins to walk. But suddenly her leg gets a little tangled and the baby begins to fall. But her father immediately grabs her, preventing her from falling. With a sincere smile on his face, he asks the youngest if she could walk on her own. He cries out whether the servant saw that their youngest went on her own. The main character understands that she only walked a little and would have fallen without her father. But the knights then cry out full of admiration that it was grand and it was so touching and also impressive, so they are very glad that they were able to see this moment. The main character thinks why admire the 3 awkward steps so much, but one way or another, this is really great progress. The baby's body is growing and it's easier to use magic and collect information has become easier. The baby found out that a festival was planned in April, as well as the schedule of Mikale's visit. The girl also learned about the title and history of this family. She is worried that she is not growing so fast, but she is reassured by the opportunity to gather information. At this time, the father says that their baby was able to go on her own, after which he turns to the knights and asks if they are training hard. The main character is then a little puzzled and wonders what the children's achievements have to do with the training of knights. And after all, the father behaves like a real boss. The servants then cry out that they are no match for the Duchess, but they work hard and will do everything possible to keep up with the mistress's successes. But the Duke then says that he heard that when Mikale came last time, Anastasia fell, and from such words the knights begin to get nervous. The young lady's father then says that spring has come and the time has come to test the knights' skills and services. Then they ask if the Duke means the same thing. And the man says that at the April festival they will hold martial arts competitions, so everyone needs to be prepared. The main character then wonders in shock whether her father made her an excuse to test the skills of the knights. And the man with pink hair just lifts his daughter into the air and claims that naturally the main heroines of the festival are his daughters. The main character thinks about what natural means, and at this time Anastasia's older sister comes running into the room. She calls the baby by name and immediately runs up to her and then hugs her. The baby claims that Asya and Lara will be the main characters of the festival. A little time later, the maids are already discussing what to put on the baby, and one of them says that the younger mistress still has short hair, so wouldn't it be better to put something on her head? Another maid claims that a headband with a ribbon would go perfectly with the color of the dress, and the young lady's mother says that since it's spring, shouldn't she use yellow fabric? The maid then turns to their mistress and asks what dress she first wore as a child, and the woman replies that her first dress seems to have been white with yellow embellishments. And the maid then claps her hands and says that then a yellow dress would be perfect for the little lady too. And they are so similar. They are also beautiful and graceful from birth. They have the same hair color and ruby eyes. The young lady's mother only says that when she first saw Anastasia, her husband was so glad that she looked like her and always said that he wanted a child like her. Then the woman takes the beautiful yellow fabric into her hands and claims that then a yellow dress will be worn for the competition. Running her hand over the fabric, the young lady's mother claims that at the baby's age, such a bright color will look very cute, and one of the maids claims that the girl will look like a cute chicken, to which the young lady's mother asks if the maid thinks that the baby will be like a forsythia flower. Then the woman sitting in front of them, who apparently is taking the order, tells the lady not to worry because they can combine two ideas into one. The woman then asks if it's true because if so, that's great, after which she points to the remaining fabric and says that their youngest doesn't have many dresses, so ask if they could make them from all the materials. The woman who sews the outfits is shocked by such an order, and the young lady's mother only tells her to make everything very beautiful. Then he asks if she can. After his father's sudden announcement of the competition, preparations for the festival became more lively. One of the knights, with shaking legs, claimed that he would definitely win, and another knight claimed that he made 3,000 blows with his sword every day. The main character understands that the knight is voluntarily training all night long in all sorts of strange ways. At this time, the maids are embroidering scarves and thinking about which knight to give them to. Their main character understands that many maids blush at the thought of declaring their love and it's spring, so it's a good period for everyone. Sometime later, it was mid-April and the day of the martial arts competition. Now, the main character is being fed by one of the maids and asks her to say A. And the main character does just that, but suddenly the maid moves her hand a little, and the porridge almost falls on the baby. Another maid immediately, with a slight wave of her hand using a napkin, picks up this drop in flight. After which she screams to the other maid, asking how many times she said that on such an important day, you need to be even more careful. The other maid apologizes, and the brunette asks what she would do if a stain appeared on the dress, because for this day a dress was specially sewn for the mistress, so let her pull herself together. The main character, looking at her dress, understands that it is really good. The young lady's mother said that it was magnificent, and it was immediately clear that the baby was her daughter, and the maid said that, of course, when she first saw the lady, she thought that this design would suit her, and the yellow color, together with the forja flower, does not allow one to take away from her look. The young lady's mother then said that it was good, and she would double all the costs for the dress, which made the woman who sewed this dress with puppy eyes thank her. Now the maid is still screaming that if the dress gets ruined, they will fly out of here, and the main character thinks that nothing happened. But why is everything so unusual today? After which she turns to the maid who fed her and tries to say something. The girl then, with tears in her eyes, asks if the mistress consoles her, after which she immediately runs up to the girl and says that she knew that their mistress had a very kind soul. The girl also claimed that she is so jealous of who will be next to her today and asks who will be her partner at the festival. The maid with black hair claims that he will come soon, so the girl will clean up there as quickly as possible. And the main character at this time understands that this is all the fuss and about her partner. The girl understands that she is unlucky, so in both cases she always wins, or... At this time, Mikale comes into the room and greets the baby, and the main character thinks that it seems they haven't seen each other for a month, after which he silently moves closer to her and says that, unfortunately, the little lady today, he is her partner. He also asks the baby if she didn't like being in his arms before, but this time he trained a lot. He asks the girl if she will allow him to accompany her today. The girl is a little surprised by this, and a little time later they are already at the festival. The mother of the main character asks for the attention of all participants and then claims that the winner of this tournament will receive not only a cash prize, but also a respectable gift. Namely, that Laurentia Endovlan and Anastasia Endovlan will personally present them with flowers. The main character, in Mikale's arms with a small bouquet, thinks that he screamed so much that he was training, but his skills in holding a child are terrible, and she is very uncomfortable. At this time, the knights run up to the main character and cry out that they will definitely receive flowers from the Duchess. Another knight claims that he will win, and the third at this time clears his throat and says that the lady should not worry because he will receive these flowers and give them to Mr. Damien. The young lady's mother turns to the kids and tells them to tell you one word each to support their knights. The baby immediately screams that Lara is rooting for them, so let them try, and Damien claims that he believes that they will win, so let them not let him down. The Duchess then turns to her daughter and says that she is next about the main character. She thinks whether she will also say something and does not understand what they want from a 10-month-old child, because all she can do is make ugly noises. But Mikale then turns to the little girl and tells her not to worry because he will translate her words and the main character understands that this is not the problem. After which she looks at all the puppy dog eyes of the knights and realizes that nothing can be done. Then she extends her hand and says something. Mikale immediately asks the Rotary if they heard the lady's words because she said that they should win. The knights immediately cry out that they will give it their all. The main character sighs and thinks that this is good. But suddenly someone else doesn't turn up and it turns out to be the blonde guy who's holding her. Mikale asks if the lady will give him the floor, because he will also compete. The main character then looks at the guy in shock and wonders if he is going to compete with these huge and scary knights. The main character understands that because of the kidnapping, she knows that the guy's abilities are better than those of a beginner, but the difference in strength and endurance cannot be ignored, and she also thinks what will happen if he gets hurt, because the boy is still a 6-year-old child. The blonde is still talking to the little girl and asking if she would wish him victory, because if she supports him, he will definitely win. But the main character does not understand what is in people's heads, after which she grabs the guy by the clothes and says something to him. The boy then asks if the little girl told him not to get hurt and asks if she wants him to win. Well, the little girl just agrees, and the blonde then puts her on the ground and laughs. Then he gets down on his knee and claims that he needs to work harder to show her his best side. Mikale also says that he will return safe and sound, but for this, if he wins, let the baby say that he was cool. The main character looks at him a little surprised, and then just turns her head away, and the boy asks if she is pretending not to understand again. The main character understands that apparently he remembered the moment when she said that her brother was cool. And when the blonde pointed at himself and asked if he was cool, the little girl said no. At the same moment, someone announces the start of the first competition, and the little girl understands that everything will begin soon, but she does not understand where Dad is because he is the organizer. However, suddenly the girl hears her father's voice and does not understand why he is leaving the arena. And when she looks at the arena, she sees a man with pink hair waving and saying that he will receive flowers from his daughters. The main character then realizes in shock that he is like an adult participating in a child's fight. The man just continues to wave his hand and asks if his son and daughter are looking at him. And the mother of the main character, seeing this, says that their dad is exaggerating a little. The young lady's brother, holding her in his arms, suggests not to stand at the railing because it is dangerous. Anastasia, at this time, thinks that her father does not look cool in front of his family and looks more like an immature boy. A short time later, the main character's family is already sitting on special chairs. The main character's father still continues to play the fool in the arena, and the girl thinks that if her father's tomfoolery is not taken into account, then the competition should be entertaining. The baby also thinks that the expected new one is more comfortable to clean up in his arms, and judging by the reaction of the knights to his father and his attitude towards them, they are confident in his excellent abilities, but do not know their scale. After a little time, the judge is already waving the flag and screaming that the battle has begun. The young lady's father offers to fight with honor, and the knight agrees. But when the father gets into a fighting stance, his face immediately changes, and the main character thinks that he instantly became a different person. But even sitting there, she feels the tension. The knight's father is afraid of such a heavy aura. But before he can do anything, the young lady's father is already approaching him. He tells the knight to concentrate, and the servant agrees with the master, after which the man with pink hair tells his opponent to keep his balance and apply strength to his legs. The main character then thinks whether this is training or a competition, but whatever the difference in skills, the knight cannot even touch his father. A short time later, the competition is declared over, and when the knight's sword already hits the floor, He says that he has lost. The young lady's father immediately turns to his family and asks his son and daughters if Dad was cool. The main character thinks that if he had not said such a thing, he would have. In the next fight, Mikale had to fight a 10-year-old knight, and perhaps due to the difference in size, he quickly approached and delivered a powerful blow at the very beginning of the battle. Mikale took advantage of the moment to knock out the sword and win in the first round. The baby understands that he takes advantage of his height, and this is an amazing battle strategy. But fortunately or unfortunately, the second round was with her father. The man with pink hair told the boy to show him all his abilities. The main character, watching this fight, understood that it was expected that her father would be calm, and the young lady's brother asked if it was true that their father was magnificent. The little girl then only agreed and then continued to look at the fight. She understood that this guy would not be able to defeat his dad, but he did not lose momentum by attacking his father with all his might. At this age, he is excellent at mastering the ball and has the will to win, so most likely in 10 years, he will achieve the same level as her father, and in 20 years he will become the best knight in the world. The baby understands that she will no longer know this because she will not be there by that time. They are sorry that she will not live more than 20 years, which is why she stopped taking students. In some ways, people wanted to become stronger, and she taught them to ignore age and status. But she never saw them move to a new level because she was no longer in that world. Either her disciples gave her or did not know mercy. 8 out of 10 were traitors. One of Ran's disciples fell into eternal sleep, and the other achieved success late. The little girl also had her ups and downs, and the remaining habits are a scary thing. Now, the girl is assessing the skills of the people who are fighting and notices that one of them has too much tension in her left shoulder. The balance is stable, but he sometimes uses useless force, but the control of strengths and weaknesses is impressive. Given the boy's ball control, he will have a wealth of military experience. The girl understands that he has a wonderful innate sense of battle, but his body is not yet able to withstand it, so it is better to use strong magic and combine it with a sword. The baby also understands that she constantly evaluates their qualities, and perhaps she still wants to leave something behind. The boy then turns to his sister and asks how much she likes Mikale, and also claims that if he participated, he would also be cool. The main character, hearing this, is a little surprised and thinks that her brother misunderstood everything, because how can she like this nasty little boy, after which she says that no, and his brother is cool. And he asks if he is cooler than Mikale, and the little girl agrees. But then she doesn't understand why her brother asks this so often, and the boy just smiles on his face and says that it's good then. He also claims that Mikale will be upset if he hears us, and the main character thinks that she has this feeling again. Living with a loving family in this life, she thought she had enough, only to meet a strange child in her dream. The feelings that she had tightly held inside began to come out, and a strong desire appeared to stay with them longer. Well, the girl thinks that first she needs to find out who this suspicious child is. At this time, the sword of one of the participants falls on the field, and a boy with blonde hair tells the Duke that he has lost. Mikale was able to land 2 punches on his father and knocked him out in the second round. The man now claims that things have gotten much better compared to last time, and the boy thanks him. And the main character now understands that, as everyone expected, the winner of the competition was her father. The main character is now with her sister and brother approaching their father, and he joyfully greets them. A little girl with pink hair comes up to her dad and says that he is very cool and Lara's dad is the best. The man then asks his daughter if this is true. And at this time, the main character approaches him and turns to his father and then hands him a bouquet. Father smiles after this and then hugs them. He claims that what a blessing because his children are so sweet and wonderful, and he showed them how cool he is. The main character's brother then says that he is no longer a child, but a young lady. He just sighs. At this time, the blonde is nearby and asking how much longer the youngest duchess will pretend that she doesn't understand anything. After this competition with many obstacles, the father successfully completed the competition, having received 3 blows to the side from the mother. The man insisted that he would continue to receive admiration from their children, and his wife told him not to forget about his reputation. Well, the main character then heard someone's voice who claimed that he missed his mistress. A little time later, two men are sitting at a table with meat, saying that their duke is the best because he treated him to meat and drink for free. And the other man claims that this year the man was very cheerful because the younger duchess also participated in them. A man over 30 claims that after the festival the harvest will begin, which is a tense work during the harvest period, and today is the last calm day. So you need to eat to your fill and start working. His interlocutor says that, and then asks, who is the younger duchess more like her father or her mother? The man with silver hair asks if the guy is going to think about it together to eat, and he claims that he doesn't know, and then asks if not all children usually look like the duke. Well, the guy claims that it's impossible to say for sure because maybe this time everything will be different. However, suddenly someone quickly runs into the bar and shouts that the ducal family is passing by, so let those who are interested come out. The two interlocutors glance at each other and then immediately run out, and even the cafe workers run out too. A man with silver hair tries to stop his friend, but he only breaks through the crowd and asks if he was right because this time everything is different. The main character understands that after the martial arts competition, her father provided the peasants with booze and meat, and he even went to the apparatus in a carriage without a roof. Now the man with pink hair claims that they could not miss the festival, in which the main characters are his daughters. The main character thinks that this is a good excuse, but he is simply pleased with his victory. At this time, Lara rejoices and says that she has become the main character, and the young lady with her brother at this time with the man's situation. The commoners say that they will work hard this year and there is no more caring gentleman, and since the Duke is a wonderful person, his daughters are also wonderful. The main character, despite all this, thinks that this is an amazing sight and she has never seen aristocrats communicate so freely with ordinary people. The festival was held to reduce the fatigue of the common people, and food was distributed under some pretext. Everyone had smiles on their faces, so the girl thinks how much time has passed since she met such a good leader. She doesn't think she's seen anything like this when she was leading others. But suddenly she notices some flowers, and when she turns around she sees that it is one of the knights. He claims that the girl wanted to give this bouquet to the baby. Anastasia examined the knight and thinks that those participating in the competition were told to rest, so she does not understand why he is there. The main character's mother then says that these are very beautiful flowers and thanks for them. The main character also tries to thank her. The redhead states that it is their duty to them. Mom then says to the young lady that he can rest today, but he says, Madam, that there is no need because long rest is harmful to the body. The little girl thinks that if you think about it like this, then he's saying it correctly, because in a past life, as a knight, she doesn't remember that you once rested. And she doesn't think that it's enough to just be a loyal protector, because if you show your abilities, there will be an aristocrat or a king who wants to keep them with him. Among them were those who cried, telling her not to go into eternal sleep even though it was very selfish. But one of these people argued that if the girl dies, who will protect her? The main character was then told that if she did not die, then they would die, and how could that be possible? Well, the woman said that she was very scared, and Anastasia then only laughed and told her not to worry, because even without her, the woman would be fine. The princess was very young and grumpy, but also very kind. Before plunging the main character into eternal sleep, she placed a bunch of protective spells on her, so now the girl is wondering whether she was able to grow up safely. The little girl thinks that this is so strange because until now she rarely remembered the past. But she still doesn't understand why, on the verge of falling into eternal sleep, the worried faces of people stood before her eyes. However, now the girl understands that this is not so important, because in the future it is better not to have memories to worry about. The baby also thinks that she would soon be able to use the power and call for an assistant. When the girl is already at the estate, someone turns to the little girl and asks why she has such a serious face. It turns out to be the same blonde guy, and he claims that he won the first round today and then asks, "Isn't that cool?" He also asks what he should do so that the little girl will call him cool, like her brother, because he is already practicing how to hold her correctly. Anastasia then wonders if he is sure that he has practiced this skill, but suddenly her bottle of milk falls out of her hands, and the guy immediately grabs her and then claims that the girl is still small so he can hold it back. The boy also says that one way or another he wants to hear from her that he is cool, and then asks if she will say that if he wins the Duke. The girl thinks that he would be cool if he didn't say it, and he has a tongue without bones. After this, the festival ended safely, And time went on, and the end of May arrived. Someone turns to the lady and says that she has already filled it out, so she should rest. But the mother of the main character tells him to go and not worry. Believe me, she will fill out the diary and go to bed. The woman also claims that they are so busy this month and are growing quickly, so it would be a pity not to record this. The man then calmly claims that he will bring her some soothing tea so that the woman can quickly fall asleep. And the young lady's mother thanks the butler and then continues to record the important event in her diary. She records that on May 5th, Laurencia was happy to receive a pink cake for her birthday, the exact same color as her hair, and she looked very cute. On the 14th of Maya, Anastasia's first tooth came out, and it was very small. The servants still bring her toys and look at her with hopeful eyes, but there appears to be some kind of worry on her face. The 31st of May, that is. Today the baby finally climbed onto the chair. It's a pity that the woman didn't see it in person, but in honor of this they had a gala dinner. The young lady's mother thinks that Anastasia is already 11 months old and does not understand how the girl is growing so quickly. But it would be great if it happened more slowly. The main character at this time lies calmly in her bed, but a second later she immediately opens her eyes and then looks at the maid. When she looks a little closer, she realizes that, as she thought, the maid is sleeping. Even after the first revolution, the little girl did not expect that they would throw her a party again. And they surprise her more and more, but thanks to this table, it is easier than she thought. Now the maid, tired from preparing for the banquet, is sleeping peacefully on the chair. And the main character at this time decides not to remain idle and then calls on the spirit. It's as if a small ball is formed from magic, after which the wings of the paw and tail are already formed from it. The creature runs up to the mistress and says that she missed her very much. The main character, looking at the creature, says that they have not seen their talkative information collector for a long time under the name Choco. Choco is already making a big show in the room and asking why the lady didn't call him and if she didn't want to see him, and that's why she didn't call him for 20 years. But he really missed the lady and waited every day looking at the sky. The main character realizes that she has the ability to summon things that she used in past lives. Choco she met 30 years ago when she was a she-devil. Choco asked why the lady decided to give him that name, and the woman claimed that it was because he looked like chocolate. The creature then said that then he also wanted to eat chocolate, but the main character said that he couldn't. The girl understood that in her 99th life she was tired of everything and spent 20 years doing nothing, so she did not need to collect information. Now the dog crawls out onto the main character's head and asks why the lady doesn't pet Choco, because he would be very happy, and the girl says that as long as he's there, this won't happen. The baby also understands that despite her circumstances, it seems that this chatterbox was very lonely, and he is the only creature who can talk to her about her lives, but she made him sad. After which the main character strokes the dog on the head, and he rolls over on his tummy wanting to take a closer look. The main character then turns to the dog and says that a creature is sneaking into her dreams. He immediately gets to his feet and asks why and whether this is hell. The main character then replies that no, and this is an ordinary place, and the dog asks who dares to invade the devil's sleep, because this is impossible, because even Choco did not dare to eat chocolate, but, be that as it may, he must find this impudent creature. The dog puts his hand on his chest as if promising that he will do this, and the main character then says that, yes, let him find out even more about this world. But the dog then asks why this is, and claims that the lady wanted not to limit herself in anything and promised him that she would live in comfort. Even 100 years ago, she said that she would no longer be in pain, but she didn't call him for 20 years and endured everything, so he doesn't understand why. The main character claims that she didn't mind, but the dog claims that he doesn't like it because every time the lady suffers and saves everyone, and he hates it. Main character then thinks that her puppy suffered instead of her, but she really is all right. After all, the longer she lives, the more often she can be given, and the girl may suffer a little to protect her life, but this family is selflessly kind to her, so the little girl thinks what is the price of that little everyday life that she enjoyed for 11 months, and she wants to repay her relatives before destruction of the world. Baby hugs her puppy and says that this is what she really wants in this life, but Choco claims that she always says that, and the girl then claims that he can be there and protect her, and she will continue to call on him. The puppy then looks at his mistress and asks if this is true, and the girl replies that yes, because he himself wants it. The puppy then begins to flap his wings and says that then it is good, and he will obey the good mistress and will also try. After which the main character watches him fly away. A little time later, the girl already realized that, according to Choco's information, there is one empire and 2 kingdoms in this world. In addition to the Sacred Kingdom, where the main one is the Pope, there are other small and large countries. But this is a familiar form of the world in which people use their cleft power and magic. But her abilities are slightly different. In particular, her family lives in the kingdom of Farshan and recognizes both sacred and magical power there. Perhaps that's why there is a magic tower next to the duchy. The empire is striving for continental supremacy, so the presence of the magic tower must be very important. But they probably have many secrets. When the main character eats porridge, who thinks that she is somehow uneasy, and the puppy at this time, a little worriedly, apologizes to the mistress and claims that he wanted to do a better job. The girl thinks that, in addition, that the puppy tried so hard, but could not find any more information, and she wants to explore the empire now, but her power is limited to the kingdom, so nothing can be done. And it's not today that attackers will attack her while she and Choco are helping her well. And just like Mom said, don't be in too much of a hurry. Lately, the baby has been trying so hard to grow up as quickly as possible, and everyone says that she is active. Except Mom. The woman just asks why their youngest is in such a hurry, because her mother just wants her to grow up healthy. And she always remained a mother's daughter. And now the girl understands that thanks to her mother, she has no need to worry. After all, these words pierced her to the core, and everything was fine for the last 2 months. So she can think that it will be like that in the future. The puppy, looking at his mistress, understands that for the first time he sees her so peaceful, and his mistress is the best because he likes her more and more, and he also brings her a lot of benefits, right? The dog even spins around the maid's head, which makes the main character smile. The maid, seeing her mistress's smile, is very surprised, and then with a smile on her face says that Anastasia laughed at her feeding skills. The main character realizes that she grinned because of Choco's cuteness, and the maid at this time still admires herself and says that it is thanks to her hard training after the festival. The dog turns to the young lady and asks what is wrong with that maid, and the girl says not to take his head, and this is a misunderstanding that does not require explanation. The girl understands that only she can see the puppy, so she told him to fly and check everything, but even Molly can't see him. The baby thinks that it is good that Choco may be next to her, but it is bad that she suffers from his chatter. That's how it should have been. However, now a guy with blonde hair asks the little girl if she has a puppy. The main character then thinks in shock why the guy sees the puppy, after which, in her thoughts, she orders Choco to pretend to be a toy. The main character understands that even magicians cannot see her puppy, but for some reason the guy can. The boy then extends his hand to the puppy and asks if this is a toy. The main character understands that now he will look like a strange guy who strokes the air and at the same moment tries to tell him that he will get dirty. The guy asks if he will get dirty, and the girl replies that yes, after which the blonde goes after the baby and asks if she likes the frequency, because if so, that's very cute. But she said that she only likes toys from Damien. He also claims that he also gave toys, and then asks if the little ones like them. After all, if so, that toy is also not to her taste. After the Hunger Games do not answer that yes, the puppy comes into complete shock. Well, the boy then asks the main character, what about the yellow dress? And the girl thinks why he started talking about it. The blonde also asks about rubies and claims that he likes rubies because they look like the baby's eyes. After that, silence hangs between them, and the main character decides that if she doesn't answer, the guy won't pester her anymore. After all, my intuition tells me. However, the boy most likely does not decide to give up and follows the baby. He asks what about fireworks because he likes them, and also toys and films, because the maid said that the baby likes yellow. The main character understands that she is silent, but the guy continues to talk anyway, and she already doubts the information that the puppy brought her. In those memories, the guy only answered questions coldly and briefly, but now he is completely different. The young man asks what the little girl thinks about the mines with precious stones, and the little girl understands that Duke Mikale is known for his silence. She was also convinced of some things because the guy really walked on his own at 6 months. But in a year he didn't even cackle, so the Duke and his wife were very worried. And all the famous doctors told them not to worry. Thanks to this, the little girl realized that her family was not strange at all, and fortunately for the Duke's parents, after a while he said his first words. His first words were an appeal to his father and mother, in which he said that he could speak. There were even rumors that the Archduke's family almost had a heart attack from such a long sentence. After this, he was nicknamed the child who does not say anything unnecessary unless necessary. And 2 years ago, after the death of his parents, he began to speak even less, and they began to send him to the baby's estate, under the pretext of lessons for the heir. But among loving adults and peers, he was able to feel like a child. However, it is a little strange that Mikale does not get along with his sister. Laurencia is very friendly and easy to get close to, but Mikale comes there and doesn't really talk to her, as if they were strangers. But even Chaco couldn't find out about this because there is too little information about him. But one way or another, if the guy doesn't talk much, why is he too talkative with her? Balakan once again turns to the baby and then confirms that today he really wants to hear that he is cool and see her smile, so he asks if the baby will help him a little. The main character understands that she would refuse if the guy purposefully asked for a gift, but the boy lived claims that her birthday is coming soon, and he can't figure out what to give her. The main character then understands that almost a whole year has passed since she was born in this strange house, and it's even a pity that time has flown by so quickly because her curse is for me to live even 20 years. At this time, the maid turns to Madame Duke and then claims that it's time for a snack, so let them go quickly. The maid also asks the Duke if Mrs. Laurencia is not with them and if she has come. When the maid leaves, she thinks that this is strange because she asked Laurencia to call them. The lady with pink hair is standing behind one of the corners at this time. The maid then turned to the little girl and stated that Madame Junior Duchess was playing in the garden, after which she asked if the little girl would call them to eat, and the girl answered that, yes, she would do everything. Well, when she came to these two, she saw the blonde man sincerely smiling. The girl immediately remembered how he had a reputation for walking down the corridor with an indifferent face. The lady with pink hair then greeted him and claimed that she was Lara. Well, the guy only briefly answered that he was Mikale Leventis and didn't even look in her direction. He also claimed that he didn't need anything and went to class. The girl tried to make friends with him a couple more times, but he only rejected her. When people's emotions and experiences pile up, it will tell them that during the day they become more and more numerous. On a clear morning on the 3rd of July, the baby woke up, as always. A year ago in the summer, she began her 100th life, and now she is a little anxious. And the little girl is even surprised that she can feel this way. She also understands that today is her birthday. The girl doesn't even remember how much time has passed since she celebrated it, and no one even thought to congratulate her. Every year, the birthday was symbolized by a designated line, and the harder life was, the more it was felt. But this time, everything is different, and it even amazes her. The baby feels a small and pleasant joy and not burning sorrow, as if long-forgotten feelings were revived. And it's enough for her to have her family say congratulations to her. That's what she thought, however. Mom provided the baby with a whole wardrobe of different dresses and asked what kind of heat she would choose today. The woman leaned over to her daughter and said that today was a very important ceremony. The little one then wonders if they are going to arrange something like tolyabi, which is fortune-telling for the future profession. If she chooses threads, it means she won't live even 20 years, or that she will live 200,000 years. But she doesn't like anyone else. The young lady's mother claims she means that the dress she chooses for her first birthday will reveal her future partner, and he can be both a husband, a colleague, and a friend. The main character understands that her mother, as a child, chose a pink dress and a ribbon with an emerald, and looking at this whole outfit, the little girl wonders if this is her father. The young lady's mother then folds her hands and claims that, as she thought, the baby is very intelligent, and maybe it was from then on that the baby's dad became her partner. The woman claims that for her he is a person whom she trusts and loves, and they also gave birth to such a beautiful daughter. After which the woman says that the first dress she chooses will give the baby a reliable partner for life. The main character understands that she would not have believed it if in a past life they had told her something like this, because such luck cannot exist. However, when my mother said this, for some reason she had hope, even though this would not happen soon. But there is nothing wrong with hope, after which the baby begins to reach for one of the dresses, and the mother, noticing this, becomes a little happy. The little girl, looking at the fabric closer, realizes that she thought that the dress was just white, but it shines in different colors depending on the incidence of light. And there are also a lot of different jewelry there, and, although it is simple, at the same time, it shines in different colors. And the baby now understands what her mother's soul desires, because her mother wants her to have many reliable partners. When the girl puts the cloth to her nose, she thinks how delicious it smells, and perhaps in 100 lifetimes of despair she could neither wish nor hope. But now her mother does it for her. The girl realizes that 12 months have flown by unnoticed, and after the party in honor of the first ague, she was no longer surprised by the subsequent ones, and was ready for anything. And when the little girl approaches the statue, she realizes that she was ready, but this family still goes beyond imagination. And where could they get this from? But then the baby is greeted by a young man with blonde hair, and she immediately understands that this is his doing, after which the girl turns around and decides to look at something else. The little girl comes up to the cake and thinks how huge it is, but there are 5 floors there. The girl also looks at the figure that is at the top and thinks if it's her with red eyes. But they gave her so many beautiful things for her birthday, and the baby was like a dream. The father of the young lady at this time tells the little girl to go to them, after which the main character does so. The father takes his daughter in his arms and wishes her a happy birthday. A short time later, the servants are already screaming to be allowed to continue to bear responsibility for the safety of their mistress, and also congratulating the baby on her birthday. The dark-haired maid claimed that she was so glad that they had been with them for a whole year, after which one of the maids approaches the baby and asks if she herself picked out the dress for today. But there will definitely be good people next to her, just like this dress. The little girl, looking at the servants, understands that after this they will probably receive bonuses from Dad, or maybe everything will be different. After all, everyone brings love to the Duke's house and puts their soul into the holiday. Now the little girl understands this well and thinks, isn't she already surrounded by good people? The girl then thanks them all, and she thinks that in this life, her first birthday is filled with amazing and special things. Various chopped fruits for easy eating, pleasant music, and many gifts from nobles unknown to her. There was a gift from the Duke, Earl, and Viscount, as well as from many others, and the little girl thought that it was just a family holiday. But again, everything is different, and she wants to hide. Suddenly, someone turns to Anastasia. It turns out to be her father, and the man asks if the little girl will refuse him a dance. The girl thinks how to do this at her age, and she, of course, agrees, but is not sure that she will be able to dance. A short time later, the father is already dancing with his daughter, and halfway through the dance, he kneels on one knee. The baby understands that eye contact is needed while dancing. Well, then her father lifts the baby up and claims that it's immediately obvious that his daughter already dances so well, and the baby thinks that she's just hanging in his arms, but since he's happy, then it doesn't matter. The children then run up to them and claim that they also want to dance with Anastasia. And even the guy with the blonde hair says that he also wanted to offer the younger Duchess a dance. The young lady's father claims that his daughter still wants to dance with her dad. But then he sees how his wife claims that since her husband does not offer her a hand, then perhaps someone else will. And the man with pink hair then screams that she should only hold his hand. After this, the main character takes the hands of her brother and sister, and Laura, with a smile on her face, asks if Anastasia likes to dance with her. The young lady's brother tells Lawrence to slow down a little because Anastasia is still small, and the girl agrees. A short time later, the lady with pink hair is running somewhere and says that she danced to this song last year. The main character does not keep up with her sister and thinks that Lara's endurance is amazing, and now the baby decides to rest a little. However, then someone turns to her and asks if the youngest Duchess would like to dance with him, and the little girl understands that this one is still left. While the rest of the nobles are dancing in the hall, the main character takes the guy's hand and begins to dance. A young man with blonde hair smiles, and her parents and brother and sister also dance. The main character, looking at their smiles, also smiles, and the blonde, noticing this, asks if she really smiled now. But the girl then says no, and when the guy asks about it again, she still answers no, and the boy then says that they will study more, so that the youngest Duchess dances as beautifully as she smiles. The main character now does not think that he will give up. And although his stubbornness is a little disgusting, it is less annoying, and so much so that she dances with him as with her family. The party ended in the afternoon, but the parents allowed the servants to party until late in the evening. So in the evening, they spent time with the whole family. Lara hugged her sister and asked if she liked dancing with her sister and brother. The little girl then replied that, yes, she herself understood that the year flew by unnoticed. And although she is still scared to get used to the comfort of family, she simply decided to enjoy these precious, happy days. Dad takes his daughter in his arms and tells Anastasia that today he will put her to bed, and when the man pats his daughter on the pock, he slowly begins to fall asleep, but understands that she should not close her eyes. After all, if she falls asleep like that, then something bad will happen again. However, it was too late, and the young lady again dreams of that child who was welcomed with her. He also says what an impolite girl she is and didn't she want to see him, because she didn't open the door for a long time, so it seemed to him that it was an invitation. The main character thinks that she didn't invite him, and then tells him to stop and asks who it is. The child then asks if the baby has forgotten him, because if so, it's quite sad. After which, the main character sees how the appearance of this child becomes an adult, and she understands that this is some kind of man. The guy says that this way the girl should recognize him, and the little girl thinks that even though they are in the subconscious, he changes his appearance too easily, so the young lady thinks what kind of power he has, because she still won't know who it is. The guy then asks if he should give the little girl a hint, and when the girl looks at her arms and legs, she then understands that this is the embodiment of her first life, after which the girl asks how he knows this appearance. And the guy claims that he can easily embody her appearance from the past, and he said that he is the only one who understands her. But then he says that time is up and apologizes for his insolence last time, after which he claims that he will look forward to it, and also the moment when the girl finds him. The main character then realizes in shock that this stranger called her name. So he asks what he just said, but the guy then just snaps his fingers, after which the baby wakes up with a headache and thinks what a disgusting feeling this is. When the girl goes up to her bed and looks at the maid, she sees that she is still sleeping, but thinks that this time he was only for one night, and it looks like the maid is sleeping peacefully. But what worries her is the name that child called her, and even though she couldn't hear well before leaving, it was definitely her name from her first life. The baby understands that she shouldn't forget anything, but her consciousness is too blurry, after which she calls Choco and tells him to find traces of that asshole that invaded her dream. The puppy tells the mistress to rely on him and claims that he will return soon and let the mistress rest. But the girl understands that she cannot stand it any longer and will now lose consciousness. After which, the little girl in her thoughts invites that guy to meet again because this time she really wants it. So let him come because she will open the door. She needs to ask a lot. But 2 weeks later, sitting on the floor, the main character realizes that this asshole never came. But she called him herself, but he didn't even stick his nose out. The mansion was in chaos because of her temperature, so the little girl wonders if this guy knows how hard it is to calm her sister down. Well, the girl thinks that she needs to calm down and think things over. The first version of what is happening is that the guy may also have been reborn, like her, and the accumulated power allows him to use her past appearance, and he knows about her past life, and can easily materialize her. This creature insists that it understands her, and there is an explanation for this, because if she met someone reborn, she would also want to get closer to him. But this guy may not be reborn, and the second version is that this is the instigator of her rebirths, such as the Absolute or God. Well then, words about understanding are not appropriate. According to this version, he is her enemy. But the girl is not entirely sure of her, because why would he come a second time? At this time, a puppy flies into the room and turns to the mistress. The main character then asks if he found out something, but the puppy apologizes to the mistress and claims that he could not find out who it was. And then the little girl asks if he found the place, and the puppy replies that of course the mistress gave him a hint, and if he had not found it, he would not have been able to return out of shame. Choco claims that the smell was very weak, but he honestly tried and even overcame mountains. The little girl then asks if the Axian Empire is really just around the corner, and Choco replies that it's true, but everything about her was somehow strange, and he didn't like it. After all, everything there is different from the pure and beautiful power of the mistress. According to the dog, the Axian Empire has many suspicious things, starting with strange magic, ending with the struggle for continental supremacy, as well as news about the development of special magical weapons and that scoundrel. For a year, the girl left thoughts about her fate aside, and she was born at a time when the world was on the verge of destruction. The baby understands that the Empire is still under suspicion as the main cause of destruction, and among their goals is their kingdom, so they need to be prepared. Baby decides that she will do more than just prevent destruction, and he will defend the peaceful life of his family to the end because this is the only way to repay them for their love. But at the same moment, the main character's sister bursts into the room and says that this is a very urgent matter. Therefore, let the baby get ready as soon as possible, and the main character wonders if the first signs of destruction have already appeared. But she still needs time to prepare because first, she needs to check the situation. However, a little later, the main character is already sitting with a stony expression on her face. Her sister at this time looks out the window of the carriage and speaks with a sincere smile on her face. That they're on a family trip. The main character's family talks among themselves, and the father claims that they chose a place where they could go 2 years ago, after which they ask if Demian remembers. The boy says yes, and the sister asks why she doesn't remember. The main character at this time thinks that she was worried like a real idiot. But in her first life, she heard about summer holidays with her family from friends. The young lady's father tells the children that there is not much left, and the main character's sister then screams in delight and claims that she can't wait anymore. The baby's mother asks if she wants to look at the landscape, and Anastasia just nods, after which the woman sits her up a little higher and tells her to be careful, after which the girl sees the beautiful landscapes of the kingdom and begins to feel inappropriate excitement. The baby also thinks that she should enjoy her vacation before the destruction of the world begins. After all, suddenly something unexpected happens during this trip. A short time later, they are already on the lands of the duchy in the village of El. A family meets them there and asks if they came with their children. The Duke says that everyone is hot today and asks if they were waiting for them there. The man then tells them not to worry because they were standing against the wall, and the Duke says that it's good then, and they have some refreshing ice with them, so let them take it. While this family thanks Hertz, the main character sighs and thinks that he is truly an outstanding duke, and she thinks that the conversation will drag on. Therefore, the little girl thinks that it's time to practice walking because in the mansion she is always occupied with something, so she doesn't have enough time for it. But the little girl, noticing the looks on herself, thinks why they are staring at her like that. The women only say with admiration that their mistress is only a year old, but she is already walking, after which they ask if they can hear stomping under her feet and how she learned to walk. They also call the lady over and offer her candy. Well, the main character remembers how her mother told her that she should be careful of strangers. However, the girl understands that her parents are nearby, so there is no danger. But she still listens to her mother, after which the little girl turns around and says, "No need." Women say that nothing can take her, and the girl is very similar to her mother. They keep talking and claim that they have sweets and fruits, but children like them. Another woman tells her friends to look at the baby's chubby cheeks and ask the lady if they can touch them. The baby thinks that she's just learning to walk and doesn't understand where all the attention comes from. It even seems to her that she is about to be eaten. At this time, the young lady's mother comes up to Anastasia and says that everything is fine, and let the baby go to them, after which the girl agrees. She thinks that she is still scared, but if she doesn't say so much, then she will come over, after which the main character approaches the women and holds out her hands, which makes them touch. One of the women asks if they saw it, but the younger mistress seems unusual. The other woman claims that the mistress is still small, but asks if she can say please. The baby understands that they themselves called her, so why ask for such a thing now? The woman hands the girl a watermelon and tells her to hold it tightly and chew it thoroughly. The main character then thinks whether everything will be okay with her if she eats this watermelon. But then she decides to take a bite anyway, and she wonders if this is really a reward for walking, but it's sweeter and tastier than she thought. The woman then, with a smile on her face, says that she is glad because the baby liked it. She also claims that this way the girl will be full if she has not eaten fully. The main character thinks that she just ate a watermelon and this is such a trifle, but even strangers are happy and this is truly a very bizarre world. After all, her 100th life is the most country of all, after which she once again sips her hands to the woman and asks her father if the baby wants more. And a minute later, the girl is already eating the second watermelon and thinks that she wants to believe that this life is the most ordinary. It is a little cumbersome, but filled with warm and bright colors. After this, the Duke and his family approach one of the houses and claim that they will live there for 2 days. The children admire the beauty of the place, and the main character's sister says that she wants to splash in the water. Father says fine, but let them change into swimsuits. A short time later, a baby with pink hair runs up to her parents with a cute hat, and she claims that she is a rabbit. After that, her brother also comes into the room. He embarrassedly says that this is a very strange outfit. After him, does the main character enter the room? She thinks, don't they usually choose a kitten or a puppy? I don't understand why she's a tiger. Laura approaches her sister and says that Asya, a very cute little tiger cub, agrees and claims that if Anastasia growls, she will immediately disarm him. You little girl understands that she is glad that her brother and sister liked it. At this time, the father calls his children and claims that he will take them on joyful boats. The main character then turns around in shock and thinks about what jolly boats mean, after which he sees luxurious ships with the heads of 3 animals and wonders if he spent money on this again. The young lady's brother just says how amazing it is, and they are just gorgeous. The baby then agrees and then looks at her father, and he thinks that he also loves such events and is also happy about their reaction. The little girl with pink hair screams joyfully and says that Dad is the best, and he is very cool, and also that she loves Dad. This makes the man almost cry with joy, after which he runs up to his daughter and says that he also loves her very much. And of course he really, really loves Anastasia, as well as Damien. A young man with pink hair turns to his father and says that now he can splash in the water without getting into the boat himself. The father says that of course he can, and yet he thought that the guy would want to have fun with his sisters, after which he extends his hand to the boy and asks if this is not so, and the boy then agrees. A little time later, a little girl with pink hair floats with her father on a small boat, and she is happy. She screams joyfully that she will be the first and let her dad push faster, but he only says that the daughter should not rush. The little girl with pink hair then tells her father that she wants to fuck. The man says that she will soon get it, but now it's Anastasia's turn. Laura then asks if this is true, because then she will be patient, after which the father says that this was expected of a kind older sister. He lets go of the boat and tells the baby to wait there a little, and the girl tells him to come back quickly, after which he approaches the other guys and asks how long they have been waiting, but suddenly a very strong blow begins, and water splashes on them. The main character thinks what kind of unnatural gust of wind this is, and this whole situation is very strange. But suddenly the young lady's brother notices that his sister is swimming away and screams Laurencia's name. But at this moment the girl is already in the middle of the lake and screams, asking for help. While the young lady's father goes after the baby with pink hair, the knight holds Anastasia and tells the lady to hold on tight, and the main character thinks what a strange flow speed there is. And there are a lot of rocks there, so if her sister hits herself while swimming so fast, then most likely she is in danger, after which the main character extends her hand and tries to use magic. But it dissipates, and the little girl thinks why she can't control it normally. However, she understands that she needs to calm down and first decides to cast a protection spell on the baby, because if she doesn't stop the boat, then at least her father can reach her. The knight cries out that the direction of the wind has suddenly changed and tells the Duke that it is dangerous. Well, the man doesn't even listen to them and keeps trying to get to his daughter. He reaches out his hand in the hope of grabbing the boat and still succeeds. The father grabs his daughter and hugs her tightly. The little girl, unable to hold back her tears, says through her tears that the boat suddenly moved on its own and she didn't do anything. The man says that Laurencia didn't do anything wrong and she obeyed her dad. The main character then sighs and thinks that thank God everything worked out. She also looks at the others and understands that they most likely did not notice her magic, but she suspects whose hands it was. After all, when her sister's boat got out of control, she felt magic and an unpleasant aftertaste, as if someone wanted to penetrate her body. And this is exactly the asshole that comes into her dreams. So the little girl thinks what kind of scoundrel he is, because he intended to plunge her sister into eternal sleep. But no matter what goal he pursues, he will never be forgiven for anything. After which the baby begins to lose consciousness and fall back. The girl realizes that she has been strong throughout all her lives. She didn't think that she could be weak, but this is the first time she has become so weak. And of course, this is all due to the fact that she used too much mana. The young lady's mother then cries out whether Anastasia has woken up, after which he pats the baby on the head and says that thank God their baby woke up. The girl only addresses her mother, and the woman immediately hugs her and says that her mother is nearby, and then asks if she feels very bad. But the baby is still too small to be on the street for so long. The main character understands that this is not the case at all, and it's all because of that asshole. So she doesn't understand why her mother blames herself. The little girl then decides that she will definitely catch this bastard. After all, how dare he ruin a small family trip? Torn this time, he turns around and doesn't understand where such an ominous aura came from. However, the main character understands that disaster comes from unexpected places. The young lady's mother brings her porridge and claims that it's time to eat, to which the little girl agrees. Well, when she already opens her mouth to eat the porridge, suddenly magic is used on the bowl, and she turns over from what, and the baby and mother are a little surprised. The woman then asks the girl if she doesn't like baby food, but Anastasia thinks that this is not at all fair. After all, this scoundrel uses wind magic whenever he wants. The main character understands that she has been starving for so long, so how can she not like food? But this person destroys what is done with love, and even a good-natured mother cannot stand it and gets angry. The girl understands that she has been sick often lately, and she is sure that this annoys the woman. At this time, the father exchanges glances with his wife, and the woman claims that their youngest is 13 months old, so the time has come. The main character does not understand what they are talking about, and the father at this time says that yes, he thought that this period would go smoothly since the girl is very calm. After which the young lady's mother turns to her and asks what is wrong or if she is sad, but she cannot say it. But at this age, Damien often got irritated when feeding, and their little one is very similar to his brother. The boy then embarrassedly claims that nothing like that happened, and the woman says that everything is fine because he was very nice and always in combat readiness. The kid is even more embarrassed and says that this was not true, and Lara then asked if she did the same. To which the father says that Laurencia ate everything, and the woman adds that the baby had a good appetite, but she cried if they were not around. The girl then asks if she was very little then, and the father says that she still wants her mom and dad to be nearby. And the little girl, hugging her brother, said that this is true because most of all she loves to be with her mother, father, brother, and Asya. The father then leans over to the baby and says that she needs to eat, after which he asks if baby food is suitable and the girl agrees. She also says that everything is fine, and Dad is not angry because she most likely wants to eat something certain, but cannot say about it. The main character, looking at her father, thinks why they are trying to understand her, because usually everyone cursed even if the fault was not hers. And the little girl thinks that she really wants to do only good things for them. Well, after that, failures happened again and again. It could have been overturned glasses of water. And because of the accumulated power, she even turned into a child who did not want to wash herself. And in the end, my father got hurt. During this time, she became vaguely aware of the intentions of this asshole who appeared in her dreams. He wanted to leave her alone and argued that if the baby was hated by the family, then she would remain alone. The main character understands that he would have succeeded if everything had been the same as before. But not this time, because now the father says about Anastasia that he should be more careful, but then asks if she is having fun. And the main character understands that there were many difficulties in her life, but no one before had given her the warmth that this family does. And most likely this is called a normal family. Drawing with crayons, the little girl thinks that in this case, if there is an opportunity to save this unusual life, then she swears that she will do everything for this, and the little girl understands that the numbers speak for themselves, and she will consider this life normal. On the way back, the baby slept in her mother's arms, and when I opened my eyes, I saw that they were already very close to the house. The girl understands that despite many difficulties, it was fun, and at the end of the journey she almost caught that scoundrel, but was unable to talk to him. He persistently tried to leave her alone, but her family did not give up so easily. And the main character thinks that her family is amazing because instead of pushing her away, they accept her. And without them, this asshole really would have managed to separate her from everyone. Therefore, this is not her victory, but the victory of the family. And the girl with a smile on her face understands that for the first time in all her lives, she is loved so much. If you ask Laurencia Endevlan who she likes most in this world, she will answer without a single doubt. What Mom loves most, and in second place is her father, and in third place is her brother Damien. But over the past year, the ranking has changed slightly due to her younger sister, who is very similar to her mother, and now the baby runs into the room looking for her sister. She joyfully screams out the name of her beloved sister, but when she looks around the room, she realizes that the girl is not there. Looking into another playroom, she also does not see her beloved sister. But when she comes to another room, she sees her there along with that boy with blonde hair. The baby watches these two and realizes that the guy is there again, but Asya is her sister. But Mikale constantly takes her away. Now the boy turns to Anastasia again and asks if she says that she hates him. And the little girl just tells him to leave, and he just asks with a smile if she's driving him away again. But they haven't seen each other for a long time, so he asks if it's too rude and then says that he brought a gift. The little girl says no, but the boy just continues and claims that he missed her and came to spend time with her. The lady with pink hair, hearing this, is already losing her temper. She thinks how bad Mikale is, and Asya doesn't love him. But even though she is angry that the guy came, she is still afraid of him. But the girl tried so hard to get close to him, and he went to meet me. But then the little girl suddenly thinks that Mikale is really torturing Asya while she's not looking, and suddenly he's more afraid of her, which is why he doesn't approach the little girl while she's nearby. But if this is not so, the good Axis has no reason to hate him. After which the lady with pink hair is a little nervous, but thinks that she will save her little sister, and she will be able to save poor Princess Anastasia from the terrible devil Mikale, because she is her older sister. And a few days later, the baby already came to her little sister. The main character then turned to her sister and asked if it was her, and the lady with pink hair then ran up to her sister and asked if she missed her, to which the girl only agreed. When the baby hugged the main character, she thought that she should be sleeping soundly now, and what happened? Usually Lara comes towards the end of the day, and when Mikale is there, he generally appears only for dinner, and if the guy had not been so cold towards her, then the girl would not have avoided him. You, baby, are not glad that sister and brother are giving up their time to him. But now the lady with pink hair turns to Asya, and when the baby takes her hand, the girl smiles and says that the baby grabbed her so much that now she cannot leave. After which she offers to play. Hey, the little girl agrees, and the lady with pink hair says that there are many rooms that Asya has never been to, so they will go on an expedition to the mansion. The main character, thinking about this, understands that although she asked her puppy to go to the mansion, she personally did not see anything. The servants nearby are a little worried and then say that this is a great idea, and they will also go. The maid says that is true, and she will prepare a snack. But the little girl with pink hair waves her head and says that it's impossible, because from his day onwards, they will go only together. The knight then asks why and if they want to look for the treasure. But the girl says it's a secret, and the maid, when she turns to them and says that if they don't take her with them, they won't be able to have a snack. The baby then gets a little tense and thinks about it. But after that, she only claims that everything is fine because during the expedition you can go hungry, and since Lara is the older sister, she will tolerate it. The main character in this form thinks how cute her sister is, and the lady with pink hair then turns to the little girl and asks if she also wants to go just the two of them, to which the girl agrees. Then the lady with pink hair picks up her bag and says that she knew it, and taking the baby by the hand, he invites her to set off there. A short time later, Mikale with wet hair enters the room and addresses the younger mistress. But when he opens the door and sees that the baby is not there, the guy thinks only something happened because she is not in the room, and now he has a bad feeling. The little girl with pink hair at this time looks at her homemade map and offers to go in one direction. The main character turns around and thinks that sister doesn't understand at all, that going out on an expedition around the house together is completely impossible. And the main character hopes that there will be no more people. A short time later, a lady with pink hair comes to the counter and says that they have arrived at the first room to explore. Well, when the main character looks at the door to the room, she thinks that some kind of ominous aura is coming from it. A little girl with pink hair knocks on the door, after which the butler opens it and asks what they wanted. But then he sees two little ladies and asks what happened. And the little girl with pink hair claims that they came to see her dad because Asya hasn't seen him at work yet, and then asks if they can come in. The butler then apologizes and says that the Duke is very busy right now. The new man just throws open the doors with all his might, causing the butler to almost fall, after which the father, with a smile on his face, asks if his baby misses his dad. The main character understands that it seemed to her that there was a strange aura in this room, but after they enter the office, then they see very tired workers who are eating and breathing. One of them is sitting in a desperate position, and the second one has his hands on his head and a dark aura seems to emanate from them. The main character, looking at them, thinks that it was not her imagination after all, and she even sympathizes with these workers. They, like ghosts, rise from their seats and greet the mistress and then ask if they want delicious sweets, because there is also flower tea, which the second mistress loves. The Duke then puts his hand on their shoulders and says that he will ask the butler about this and let them return with a report in 2 hours. The workers cannot refuse their boss and leave. The father turns to his daughters again and asks what they wanted. The little girl with pink hair claims that they wanted to see how cool Dad is when he works. The man then asks if the girl really thinks so, and the kid says that. And he's also cool when he makes a swish-swish with his sword. And the man then offers to go to the training ground, but the little girl just screams that she can't. And the man then leans over and asks dejectedly why, after all, she says that Dad is cool when he slashes and slashes with a sword, but doesn't want to look. And the little girl claims that this is because today she and Asya are exploring the mansion, and they cannot leave it because the expedition site is located there. The main character wonders if Mikale isn't at the training ground right now, and that's most likely why Sister doesn't want to. And after that, the baby also claims that they won't stay there for long, and the father then asks in shock why. And the girl claims that her mother forbids them to distract him from work. And the man says that they don't distract him at all. Well, the lady with pink hair says that Dad can't do it because he himself said that good children shouldn't do things that Mom doesn't like. And that's why Lara ate peppers and spinach today. And even if he wants to play with them, he must work and be good. The main character, looking at this, remembers how her mother told little girls with pink hair not to do that next time, and most likely the girl teaches her father discipline, just like her mother. The baby then asks if he understands, because Dad is a good adult. The main character can no longer hold back her laughter, and apologizes to her sister in her thoughts. But she can no longer restrain herself because the baby is very cute, so the main character laughs sincerely, which makes the father and the lady with pink hair delighted. They immediately wave their hands and say that Asya smiled. The father asks if he dreamed it. The man also pokes the baby on the cheek and asks if she's having fun being scared, but Anastasia thinks that she's not, and that her sister is just very cute. The lady with pink hair then turns to her father and asks why he is setting a bad example for the little girl, but the man waves his hands and says that he does nothing of the sort. However, the girl says that Asya completely agrees with her, and if Dad wants praise, then he should do what he doesn't like, and Lara, as an older sister, knows everything. The main character realizes that this is not entirely true, and then apologizes to her dad in her thoughts. But she agrees with her sister why she should be happy and asks if Dad heard, and the little girl thinks that now the main thing is her sister's smile. After which the lady with pink hair hugs her sister, and a little time later they are already leaving the office of their father, who is not very happy about this, and also claim that they have moved on. A lady with pink hair, holding a map in her hands, asks where they are going now, and the main character, looking at the baby's bag, thinks that it is full of snacks. And the girl even made the map herself, so the little girl thinks that her sister was getting ready to play with her. And they couldn't play often because Mikale came, so the little girl apologizes to her in her thoughts. But suddenly the main character trips over her foot and begins to fall to the floor. But Anastasia cannot do anything and only puts her hand in front of her. The pink-haired lady notices that she is very worried about her sister and screams her name. But when the girl approaches her sister, it is already too late because the baby is lying on the floor. While the lady with pink hair asks how Asya is, her mother approaches them and turns to Anastasia. Lara says that she didn't do it on purpose, and the woman tells her daughter that she knows, but claims that Anastasia is still too small and needs to walk more slowly, and then asks if the baby can do it for her. Lara then agrees, but she still feels very guilty. Well, the main character decides to cheer her up and pats her on the shoulder. The baby cannot hold back her tears from such actions and begins to cry out loud. She realizes that even though her sweet little sister patted her, she was still upset and burst into tears. The girl thinks she wasn't a cool big sister that day. But next time the little ones will show only their best side. After all, if Asya is a princess, then Lara is her knight. And since the kind younger sister consoles her, she will be a knight for her as long as it takes. Because she is the older sister. Now Lara takes her sister by the hand, and when the baby almost falls again. Then the lady with pink hair asks if everything is okay and affirms, "What about now?" so that the baby doesn't fall. She will hold her tightly. Accompanied by his older sister, a serious exploration of the mansion began. They enjoyed a fire show in the kitchen, and the chef claimed that he would show them his best dish. After that, they went to have tea with their mother in the garden and played hide and seek, hiding in the laundry hung by the maids. The girls ran merrily through the expanses of the mansion, and the last place for today was the children's library. The lady with pink hair was reading a book, dividing the words into parts. And the main character understands that, unlike her brother, the swamp one is so soft and calm. Anastasia really likes it because it resembles the sounds of a beautiful summer day. The main character begins to close her eyes and wonders if it's because of the long walk and the lack of food, but she really wants to sleep. And after that, the baby finally gives up and falls asleep. The lady with pink hair finishes reading at this time and asks Anastasia if they should read another book. But without hearing an answer, she looks at her sister and thinks what happened. But then she sees the baby sleeping peacefully on the floor and wonders if she has fallen asleep. The girl, when she is delighted, wonders if it was she who lulled her to sleep, after which she approaches Anastasia and asks if she is her little sister. Looking at the baby's sleeping face, she thinks how cute Anastasia is, and she is only her younger sister, and not Mikale's sister. When the girl puts her finger on the baby's hand, she grabs it. A short time later, the main character is already sleeping with her little sister, and someone covers them with a blanket. It turns out to be Damien, and he asks if they came there alone, but they didn't tell him. After which he also adjusts the pillows under the heads of his sisters. And he puts one down for himself, after which he climbs under their blanket and says that this expedition is for two, but asks if they can take him too. So they wandered around the mansion for almost a week. The baby rarely went to her room during the daytime, but there was one thing that worried her and Art Mikale, who came into the room and asked if the younger Duchess was in the room. And today, where could she go? The maid claimed that they went on an expedition around the mansion, and the boy asked if Damien knew where they could go, but he also said that he also wanted to play with the baby. Now the puppy claims that the boy said so, and he also had a very sad face every time he came there. Therefore, Choco asks if the boy has succumbed to the charm of the Lady Devil. The main character understands that she didn't want to do this, but she managed to avoid him. But this wouldn't have happened if she had spent enough time in formation from the very beginning. But she is sorry that she had to make the guy wait so long, and tomorrow she will tell her sister to take a day off from the expedition. Well, the next day, when the lady with pink hair once again came to her room with a joyful smile, she again offered to go on an expedition, after which she began to take out chocolate and other things that she had prepared from her bag. The main character then thought how she could refuse, and Mikale could be a little sad. The girl showed the young lady where they would take her today, and she just agreed. But suddenly she heard someone else's steps, and when this person entered the room, he told them to wait. It turned out to be Mikale, and he said that he would also go on an expedition. The guy claimed that he wanted to take a walk with the younger mistress, and that's why he had everything he needed for the expedition. He tells Mrs. Laurencia to let them take him because he will be useful. The main character, looking at the expression on her sister's face, wonders if she's okay, and the guy keeps talking and claims that if he joins. Well, the lady with pink hair interrupts him and screams that he can't. The main character is shocked by this, and so is the young man with blonde hair. The boy then asks why not answer. He will be useful. But the little girl with pink hair says that they don't need anyone because only she and Asya can. The boy once again turns to Mrs. Laurencia and claims that he is prepared, so he asks why not. But suddenly the little girl turns to him and tells him not to bother him. And the guy says that he doesn't bother anyone, to which the little girl replies that he does, and the boy asks if he really looks that bad, to which the girl agrees. The guy then gets a little upset, and the main character thinks that he is cold and indifferent to her sister's feelings. So what's the expression on his face now? Anastasia then says that he is not allowed, and the guy just leans towards her and asks if she is against it too. After all, he learned a lot from Damien, and is he really not allowed to be with them? The baby then thinks, is it important now, and the lady with pink hair screams that Mikale is not her brother. The guy then coldly looks at the lady with pink hair and asks what she is talking about. And the main character thinks that he is looking at her sister like that again. But it's much easier to hurt her than her. The lady with pink hair screams that no matter how much the guy repeats after his brother, he will not become one. But the boy only asks why not. And the young lady's sister then screams that Asya doesn't love him. But the lady with pink hair then says that he is only asking questions, and then claims that Anastasia hates him, and he continues to play with her, and the baby loves her because she is her sister. The main character, looking at her sister, thinks that this is the first time she has seen her like this, and then she looks at the young man with blonde hair and thinks that they are having her déjà vu. After all, he had a similar face when he quarreled with Damien, so the little girl is wondering whether she should cry again. But the girl understands that this is a different case, and if she cries, then their relationship, on the contrary, will worsen. The lady with pink hair will then say that Asya is crying, and it's all because of Mikale, and in order to reconcile them, they must first. Well, the boy then interrupts the young lady's thoughts and says that the youngest duchess hates him, which makes the little girl a little surprised. The guy just turns to the young lady and says that she never seriously told him to leave, and that's true. The main character wonders if he thinks so, because she said to just move away, and the guy doesn't hear an answer, says that it seems like it is, but the little girl thinks that she didn't even answer. So why did he think that? The lady with pink hair then turns to her sister and says that Asya loves her sister more than Mikale, to which the little girl agrees. The guy claims that he didn't say that the younger duchess loves him more. She just hates him. Therefore, he once again asks to be taken on the expedition. But the little girl screams again that no, and this is a secret expedition only for the two of them. The guy then suggests that the three of them keep the secret and not tell Damien about it, but the little girl with pink hair screams again that it's not. With tears in her eyes and shaking hair, she claims that she has already refused, after which she asks why he continues. The girl says that she hates him because he plays with his brother every day, but not with her, and now he also wants to take Asya away. The main character is trying to calm down her sister, and the lady with pink hair says that Asya is her sister, not Mikale. After which she also turns to her mother and tells her to kick Mikale out because she wants to play with Asya, hey baby, her sister. Mikale doesn't even know what to do because of this and stands in a stupor. At this time, the main character notices someone standing in the corridor and realizes that it is her mother. But looking again, she sees that everyone has arrived, but does not understand why they don't come. And looking at her mother's face, she thinks that she probably wants these two to figure it out on their own. After all, it is useless to interfere in the affairs of children until they understand the problem. And besides, if the family intervenes, then Mikale will feel alienated. Despite his maturity and seriousness, the guy is just a 6-year-old child. Mikale communicates with their family at the request of his grandfather, but it is difficult for a child who has recently lost his parents to fit into this environment. The young lady's kind brother understands him and goes along with him, but not the sister. And now the blonde's wounds are a little tighter, however, he still doesn't understand that his sister is in pain because of him. The baby doesn't tell others what she doesn't like, and is always upset because of other people's mistakes, and also tries to console others, and she is truly a person with an angelic character. The girl extended her hand to him several times, but Mikale kept pushing her away. And now the main character, looking at the worried guy, thinks that this time she will not help for the sake of him and her sister. Therefore, let Mikale figure it out himself. The boy remembers how the little girl extended her hand to him, and several times she invited him to play together and also make friends. The guy thought why she was so joyful because he wasn't having fun at all. Looking at the girl's smile, he understood that she knew no loss and knew no evil. The pink-haired lady's brother asked Mikale if he wanted to get along with his sister. The guy claimed that he would like to, but the girl avoids him, and Damien then offered to try to be the first to extend his hand, because that's exactly what will happen. And now the boy clutches his shirt more and more and then turns to Mrs. Laurencia and asks him to forgive. The guy gets down on one knee and says that he didn't know he was hurting her, and then asks why she hates him. The lady with pink hair just looks at Mikale in surprise, but he doesn't understand why, and I repeat once again that he is really very sorry in front of Mrs. Laurencia. The baby is then silent for a bit and thinks about everything he said. Then she says that she is Lara, and the girl claims that she does not like to be called mistress. After all, even the knights and maids call her Lara, and he alone calls her differently. The blonde then asks if the girl will forgive him and if he will call her Lara, and the lady with pink hair then says yes, if Asya doesn't mind. The main character heard these words and rejoices, and then the two look at her. after which the little girl says that she doesn't mind, but looking at her sister, she wonders if the girl with pink hair is upset. But the main character extends her hand and realizes that she still won't tell about it, after which she kisses her sister on the cheek, which makes her very surprised. The lady with pink hair then hugs her sister and asks if she loves her more than anyone, but this is not strange because she is the older sister. In response, the baby only agrees, and that same evening they are already sitting at the table covered with all kinds of goodies. The young lady's mother turns to Mikale and tells him to eat more. The boy thanks for the invitation to dinner and says that he will eat everything. And the young lady's mother remembers how she recently told her husband that it turns out they won't have to interfere because the children have made peace. But the man with pink hair asked the darling if she thought everything would be okay. The woman said that children also need time and they believe they are Laurencia's parents. The young lady's mother then turned to her husband and asked if he was a little worried about Michael. The man didn't even know what to answer. The lady with black hair then claimed that that was why they didn't get involved, and of course, if it was a serious quarrel, they would have had to. But this time, their task was simply to observe. The main character is now mentally apologizing for overhearing the conversation, but she thinks that they are such good adults, and she is glad that these people are her parents. The girl realizes that they remind her of her old mentor. He spent a lot of time with her, but he was the only person she could call a teacher, and when she needed to be strict, he was like that. And when she needed to hit soft, he was like that. The man turned to his stupid student and told her to swear that she would not go into the flames alone. This was his last wish, and although the girl did not make a promise, she still could not keep it. Memories of that time break her heart, and she is afraid that she will give her whole soul again and she will be hurt. Well, the girl thinks that this time everything will be fine, but she is still worried. The young lady's brother at this time turns to her and asks if she can take a tomato, because if so, he will help. Mikale, observing this, immediately intervenes in the conversation and puts more and more food on the baby's plate. He asks if she wants to eat it, but Damien says no, and Anastasia can't eat such big snacks yet. The guy, looking at all this, says that her teeth have already come out, but the young lady's brother says that that's not all. The little girl looks at the mountain of this food and thinks that she won't be able to eat it, and is the guy really pissing her off on purpose? Damien at this time turns to his friend and says that Anastasia is still a child, and if this is a congress, she will cry. The blonde then asks if this is true, after which he turns to the little girl and asks him to forgive him. He asks if Anastasia will forgive him, and the girl, looking at him, is a little surprised. And she thinks that he really gets on her nerves, but when she's next to him, everything shrinks inside her, and it's very strange. And the plus to the fact that they made peace was that in the end he was taken on the expedition. October has arrived, and the busy time leading up to Thanksgiving and many other holidays has begun. The girl understands that such days can be walked calmly even after the reconciliation of Mikale and her sister. They all began to play together, and today their games were prepared by the knights. Now one of the knights claims that the game is called Find the Treasure. The lady with pink hair then asks with eyes full of admiration if they will look for the treasure. And the knight claims that they will split into pairs, and those who bring the most found treasures will win. The lady with pink hair then asks what she will get if she wins. The knight then claims that if the duke wins, he will be able to challenge the master to battle. And the boy at the same moment turns to the main character and asks if she will say that he is cool if he strikes the duke 3 times, and the little girl still thinks if he has not given up. But since this is the desire of a 6-year-old child, she decides to agree. And the young man with blonde hair asks if this is true, but the little girl wonders why he is so pleased. And again, she fell asleep in front of him, because after that incident she stopped telling Mikale that she didn't like him. After all, she realized that the words that she uttered out of disgusting habit came out of her sister's mouth at the moment of an argument with Mikale. And the little girl understood that it was only her fault, because if a person looks normal, this does not mean that he is really fine. And you need to behave with Mikale in a special way, like with a child, after which they swear on their little fingers. And Mikale asks if she promises what the little girl will agree to, after which they were divided into teams, and Anastasia and Mikale ended up in the second team. The boy then asked the little girl to take care of him, to which the girl agreed, and the blonde then claimed that he would definitely win for the sake of the two of them. Well, at least he said so. But now they walk slowly, and the boy shows the little girl beautiful flowers. He also points out butterflies, and the main character thinks that for some reason he led her in the wrong direction. At this time, the main character hears her sister screaming what they found, and the girl thinks whether Mikale really wants to win, after which she turns to the boy. And then he just puts a smile on his face and asks if the little girl is worried about him. The main character thinks that's not what she's talking about, but the guy says, of course. After which he grabs one of the leaves that falls from the trees and hands it to the main character. The girl, looking at this leaf, is a little surprised and thinks why he gave it to her, and the guy claims that it's been a long time since they played together, so now he feels good. And he is also confident. The main character is a little surprised by such words, and the boy then asks if they should go further. Then he claims that in fact, during the morning training, he saw what the knights were doing, and the main characters don't think what kind of cunning guy he is. She thought that Mikale would be in a hurry, but now he is acting like a brother. The blonde claims that Damien told him before that if the child wants to see or do something, he cannot say so directly, so his friend advised him to be more attentive to the baby during games. After all, butterflies, flowers, leaves, and snow are things that the little girl has never seen before. The main character then thinks about her brother and says his name. And the blonde at this time says that he will study hard to become as good an older brother as Damien, after which he asks if the baby can say his name too. The main character is a little surprised by such a request and then does so. But the boy then asks if she said that, and the little girl says that she doesn't hate him. The blonde then asks if she really doesn't hate him, and the little girl answers Mikale yes. After this, a light breeze begins to blow and the baby closes her eyes. And when he opens it, he is very surprised. After all, the boy with a sincere smile on his face asks if she will then become his younger sister. The girl then only turns away and thinks the same guy is a fool, because she was her from the very beginning. A short time later, the guy is already deftly climbing onto a tree branch. When he grabs it, he climbs a little higher and sees a box there, after which he jumps off her and tells the little girl what he found. And the main character thinks it's possible to hide treasures from children in such a place. The knight then says that the boy really climbed there, and the main character thinks that they probably thought that the children would ask the knight to get the treasure because it is too high. Well, it looks like the boy is having fun, and that's good. A short time later, they already found 6 pieces, and brother and sister have so far collected 5, so the main character thinks that time is running out, and most likely they will win. But at this time, someone approaches her, and it turns out to be Mikale with another box. He turns to the little girl and asks her to say that he is great. The main character thinks that he seems to be acting especially stupid with her today, and this is a simple request, and she also feels guilty before him, so the little girl pats the guy on the head and says that he's done well. The girl also thinks that she doesn't want to upset the person who is so happy about a simple gesture. A short time later, the knights are already holding gifts in their hands and saying that the Duke and Mrs. Anastasia have won. The lady with pink hair then smiles and says, "It's a shame, but congratulates Anastasia." And the knight then claims that since Mrs. Lara and Mr. Damien also found the treasure, they can take it for themselves as a prize. The little girl with pink hair then, in shock, asks if she really can, and the knight replies that, of course, and now Mrs. Anastasia and Mr. Damien receive the prizes. Damien's prize is damn new boots, and Anastasia's is a hat in the shape of a knight's helmet. After that, the knight handed the gift to Mrs. Baby with pink hair, so when she opened his toast, she asked with delight if it was true for her. The knights replied that, of course, the lady wanted them too. It turned out to be leather armor for a child and a baby hugging them. She says she really likes it. The main character remembers how the little girl said that she also wanted clothes like knights. Her mother asked if the baby wanted her, and the girl argued that, yes, she is a knight, therefore she should wear such clothes. The main character understands that the knights remembered these words, and now Laurentia claims that Asia is a princess, and she will save her. Now the knights offer to play in the treehouse next time, and the young lady's brother says that this is a great idea, and after the harvest festival we can do it, and, as they promised Mikale, the young lady's father accepted the challenge to fight. Now the blonde tells the little girl to be sure to keep her promise, to which the girl agrees, and the guy smiles in response to this, and the main character wonders if she's really gotten used to him, and now the guy isn't as disgusting to her as before. When the fight begins, Mikale delivers his first blow and thinks that there are 2 more left. Then the boy smiles, and the young lady's father thinks that all he has to do is look at him, and then the fight continues. And receiving another blow, the boy staggers back, but he still decides not to give up and again stands firmly on his feet, swinging his sword and once again earlier than the young lady's father. The man with pink hair says that the guy's skills have grown a lot and he's even starting to get nervous. But he insists he won't give up so easily. The main character wonders if the father is too serious with his 6-year-old child. And the little girl thinks that her father clearly has high hopes for Mikale. The fight is still going on, and when the young lady's father sees that the boy is already tired, he asks why. Why don't they finish it slowly? Well, the boy then asks the gentleman to fight a little more, and the young lady's father tries to object. However, the boy says that he won a little more in the search for treasure, after which he abruptly jumps from his place and runs with all his might to the young lady's father. And while he lost his vigilance, the boy wounds him. Everyone in the room is shocked, including the main character. They scream Michael's name, and the boy, seeing that he was still able to win, sincerely smiles, and he says that he still won, after which he bows before the Duke and puts his sword aside and then immediately heads towards the main character. A young man with blonde hair with a smile on his face asks if the little girl saw that he dealt 3 blows. The main character thinks that he really was able to defeat his father, and then she sighs and realizes that a promise is a promise, after which she calls the guy cool. The boy heard this and cannot believe his ears and stands in a stupor, but then he immediately tilts his head back as if trying not to cry and calm down, after which he looks at the baby again and asks if he can then be considered her brother. Anastasia is a little surprised by these words and then looks away, and she thinks that this is so embarrassing. However, the guy is already her, like her brother. On the eve of Thanksgiving, Mikale went home for 3 weeks, Damien's birthday, and the little girl thought that he was constantly in their mansion, so she forgot that his house was not there. Damien's birthday. And the Duke then claims that then he will soon send him an invitation, but let the boy tell him not to overexert himself. Michael then bows and says okay to the Duke, after which he looks at the baby. And with a smile on his face, he whispers that he will be back soon, and their main character only nods in response to this. The whole family of the young lady looks at her in surprise, and when the boy leaves, she waves to them. Then the father of the main character waves back at him with a smile. Well, then he coldly claims that their youngest is too cute and her father's problem. A little time later, the main character thinks that time has flown by and Thanksgiving Day has arrived. Now the pink-haired baby screams in delight, and the young lady thinks that in contrast to the spring festival with many colorful flowers, the fall festival is filled with various goodies. Now the little girl with pink hair says how delicious everything looks, and the main character thinks that this is a holiday for the people who have experienced many difficulties over the year. The whole family put on simple clothes and mingled with the people to enjoy the festive atmosphere. And now the young lady's sister offers the little one another tasty treat, but the girl says she's full. When the little girl continues on her way, she turns to the girl and thinks that sister can't eat because she's worried about her. Lara says that she is ashamed to eat one, and when one of the maids tells the mistress to eat with her. At this time, the baby thinks that it would be nice to spend a little time with her brother, and everything will be fine if Lara has a maid next to her. After that, he and his brother approach the Tower of Pumpkins, and a young man with pink hair asks if the little girl wants to look at her, after which she nods. The guy understands that usually the little girl is not interested in such things, but she seems to really like the tower. With a smile on his face, he says that the tower is very high, and it's difficult to see the whole thing, so he offers to lift the baby. But suddenly they hear parents nearby saying that their children liked the tower made of joints. The father then says that when Damien was little, and at this time the guy realizes that these are his parents again, and lately they often tell shameful things about him in front of their sisters, things he doesn't even remember. So the guy comes up to them and thinks, how can you stop your parents? Then he turns to his mother. Well, she only claims that then there were only 3 of them, and Damien was interested in everything around him. Therefore, when she literally turned away for a second, the guy suddenly disappeared and really scared her. The guy's father replies that it's true and he made my mom worry a lot. The main character notices that her brother is squeezing her hand more tightly. The girl thinks that bruises will appear and then turns to her brother. But seeing his face, she understands that she shouldn't say now that she's in pain. The father still continues his story and claims that everyone was separated and looking for the guy, but they didn't even hear him cry, and he was so worried that his mother would faint from excitement. Well, they found him, and the guy was hiding near the tower and the joints, and even grumbled that it was their mistake, and he couldn't cry. Suddenly, the young lady's brother begins to drag her somewhere, and the main character turns to her parents. Those who are still busy talking think that now is not the time to look at pumpkins. As they walk further and further, the main character sees her older sister with cookies. Well, the little girl doesn't understand where the maid who was next to her went, but in such a crowd you can't see anything. And even though everyone was having fun just now, for some reason the young lady now has a bad feeling. And she thinks that someone will definitely get lost a little time later. These two are already approaching one of the trees, and the boy with pink hair asks if his parents like to embarrass him so much with things he doesn't remember. The main character looks at her brother and thinks that he is a smart future heir to the dukedom, and she doesn't know anything about the guy's childhood until he was 6 years old, so it's hard to imagine that his brother was very young, as his parents say. But for them, the guy is always their favorite son, and naturally they think he is cute, but it seems that the brother does not like to look like a small child in front of them. So much so that he ran away holding her hand. The guy now claims that he should be a role model, and the main character, looking at his face, now understands what he is thinking about. Well, the young man then turns to Anastasia and looks at her hand. He sees that a red mark has appeared there from his grip. The guy immediately feels guilty and leans over to his sister, apologizing to her and then asking why she didn't cry. He also asks why she doesn't say anything when something like this happens. The girl then only asks if she is bad. But the guy claims that no, and she's not bad. He claims that he is not talking about this and also did not know that she was hurt. So he apologizes, after which he hugs his sister and asks her to just talk if she's uncomfortable. The little girl turns to her brother and he says that he's to blame, but the little girl claims that everything is wrong and he is not to blame. The boy is surprised by this, but suddenly he hears someone calling them. The little girl wonders if something happened to her sister, and the guy picks her up and says that they will run and shake her a little. While the young lady's mother asks where everyone went and thinks what will happen if something bad happens, and the father claims that the knights will definitely find them, Damien runs up to them. And when the parents turn around, they see their son with the baby, who asks where Laurencia is. The mother then just hugs her son and asks where they ran away. After all, they were so worried. The boy is then silent, and when his mother releases them from her embrace, she claims that the maid is looking for Laurencia, so he asks what has already happened. The parents look at each other and say that she decided to play hide and seek, which is why they are looking for her. And the main character understands that this is a lie, and her mother lied on purpose so as not to worry them, but the little girl still thinks about what really happened. She uses her powers and thinks that there are many people at the festival, and this worries her even more. After which, a puppy appears in the air and turns to the mistress, and then asks why she didn't call him for so long, and is his help really no longer needed, because she didn't call him for a whole week. But the little girl only turns to the puppy and says that her sister is missing, and if he finds her, she will not bring him back for 3 days. The puppy is surprised by this and immediately sets off. He claims that he will return soon, and the main character thinks that it is a matter of time to find her sister with him. The boy at this time turns to his mother and says that he will also look for his sister. And the main character thinks that things can't be left like this with her brother because she has no experience in family affairs and doesn't know what to do. The boy then turns to Anastasia and says that his sister is playing hide and seek, and then asks if the little girl wants to look for her with him. The girl then thinks that her brother also guessed everything and nods her head. Well, then the puppy turns to her and points to the tower with pumpkins, screaming that her sister is over there. The baby looks at the pumpkin tower and then says the pumpkin words. The brother then asks if she's talking about pumpkins, because if so, he will take her later, but the baby continues on her way and points to them. When she already approaches the tower from the pumpkins, she thinks that it is too high and disappears. So how could the baby get there? The girl also thinks about whether she should use magic, but if she does so, the tower will collapse, and at this time her brother asks Anastasia what happened. At this time, a young lady with pink hair is sleeping in the pumpkin tower. She wakes up and wonders if it's Batik's voice, but when she opens her eyes, she realizes where she is and immediately starts crying. Brother, hearing this, asks Laurencia if this is it, after which he immediately asks if Laurencia is inside. And the lady with pink hair then screams out her brother's name. The main character thinks, thank God I realize that her sister is there. The guy then climbs up the pumpkins and says that he will release the baby with pink hair, but let her not move because it is dangerous and will wait a little. After which he already extends his hand and tells Laurencia that he is there. The guy also looks at his sister, asking if she will reach her hand. When the baby comes closer, the guy tells her to stick her hand out first. And when she does so, the guy says that she's great, but she should be careful. The main character, seeing how the tower is shaking a little, thinks that it is dangerous, and that her brother can save his sister safely. Then she decides to carefully help him, and a little time later the baby still manages to crawl out. She immediately hugs her brother, and the guy then asks why his sister climbed there. And the little girl claims that Mom and Dad said that he once climbed into the pumpkin tower and she became interested. The guy then understands the danger of those stories from his parents. And at this time, the parents run to their children and ask how the children are doing. Lara says that she is fine, and then the parents breathe a sigh of relief. However, the young lady's brother says he has something to tell them. Then the parents approach them and ask where their daughter was, and she claims that she is in the pumpkin tower. The woman then says that she and Damien seem to immediately see that the girl is her sister. Well, the young lady's brother then covers her ears and tells her to wait a little, after which he turns to his parents and states that he is very grateful that they value the memories of his childhood, but he would like them not to talk about his mistakes in front of his sisters. The guy's father then says, was he really embarrassed? But the guy then cannot stand all this and screams that this is not the main thing, because the girls think that his actions were correct and repeat after him. The parents are then a little taken aback by their son's response, and the guy claims that he wants the sisters to follow only a good example. He also tells Mom and Dad that he thinks they understand what he means, and my father himself always said that you can only make a mistake once. The man is a little surprised by this, and the boy then opens his sister's ears and apologizes, after which he asks if his ears hurt. The main character, looking at her brother, thinks that he looks relieved, and it seems that his torment has passed on to his father. And the girl, looking at her father, who is almost crying, thinks whether she needs to console adults too. The baby, while in the carriage, says that when she heard her brother climbing into the tower from the joints, she thought that it was a lot of fun inside. And the young lady's mother then says that's how it is, but the brother then turns to Laurencia. And he says that in the future, she should always say where she is going to go, and the little girl agrees. The woman whispers that it would be nice if their firstborn did this too, which makes the boy tense a little. Well, then I look at each other, they both smile, and the guy agrees with his mother. After that, the parents talk to the brother again. The guy claimed that he was very embarrassed in front of his sisters, so he didn't like it all. After which, he offered to leave these conversations only between them, and the parents agreed, and then asked if the boy wanted to spend a little more time with his mom and dad. The little girl understands that although everything ended well, her parents were very worried, and she was worried that her 7-year-old brother behaved like a small child. But everything ended well. Now the main character is watching all this through Choco and says that he is great. As the baby promised, she spent as many as 4 days with him, but when Mikale returns, she will not be able to call on him for some time. Remembering how the boy asked if the baby had gotten a puppy, the girl thought why the guy was seeing him, but the puppy now claims that he is so happy and asks if he can stay with the girl some more and continue to sleep with the devil and also protect her while she eats. But the main character says that it's impossible for the puppy to immediately break down and asks why he just won't let this little Duke near her, because this brat is one in his teeth, and Choco is the only strength of the magnificent and majestic devil. The main character thinks that if she doesn't call for a puppy, it won't get worse because this is not such a harsh world. But after that, she claims that she needs Mikale for now, and the puppy then asks if she really has some kind of great plan, to which the girl replies that yes, but she herself thinks that in fact she doesn't have any plan. But in any case, she alone can prevent the destruction of the world, but she does not want to die. After all, so much time had passed since she last hesitated. Aha! The puppy then turns to his mistress and asks if this nasty boy is one of the candidates for the devil's assistant. After all, then nothing can be done, and since the mistress is thinking of taking a subordinate, then he will become Choco's student. After all, Choco is the best first assistant of the mistress, and if it is that arrogant brat, then he should educate him well so that he obeys his mistress. The main character only smiles in response to this. And then she pets her puppy, but in her thoughts she apologizes to Mikale, and he thinks that they will probably never be in such a relationship. At this time, she watches her sister and brother playing on the street, and he thinks that it would be good if everything remained as calm and peaceful. At this time, Mikale's grandfather is sitting behind papers and says that this news is truly stunning. But suddenly he hears someone knocking on the door, and the boy claims that it is Mikale and then asks if he can come in. The man then places this document under the others and tells him to come in. Damien's entire birthday. The guy is now saying that it is not necessary to have a party in honor of his birthday because the sealing holiday is coming soon. October 31st is the day God sealed the devil. And since this is a big event, her adult brother again tried to give in. However, his mother says it's good to have many days to celebrate, and she doesn't want to miss any. However, when the boy tries to object, then his mother asks not to take away such joy from her. To which the guy agrees, and the main character understands that for this reason they were preparing for two holidays, the day of sealing and the birthday of her brother. And for the upcoming celebration, Mikale Leventis returned again. The boy is now holding picture books for children in his hands and says that he brought these especially for the baby. The main character is then already reading one of them, and the boy claims that 3 weeks passed and the girl was still washing. The little girl thinks that he didn't have time to come when he's already chatting, after which she shakes his hand. The guy then says that he is glad to see that the younger Duchess did not hate him anymore, and the girl thinks what kind of nonsense he is talking about. And yet he continues to see a little child in her. But when the boy takes the baby's hand in his, he kisses it. No, he missed the younger Duchess and looks at her, but suddenly someone turns to Mikale, and the guy shudders from this. This man claims that the boy did not greet the Duke and immediately ran to the younger Duchess. It turns out to be Mikale's grandfather, and he asks if this is what he taught the guy. The boy immediately gets up from his seat and tells the girl that no, and he says that then let him go out, and the boy agrees. The main character realizes that this is the first time she has seen such a nervous Mikale, and that man is his grandfather, Archduke Leventis. The man then locks eyes with the young lady and then turns around, after which he apologizes to the younger mistress and claims that he will officially introduce himself later, and the little girl thinks that the rumors do not lie and he is very cold. But the man could have simply sent a servant to call Mikale. Therefore, she does not understand why Mikale's grandfather came in person. Today we had dinner with Archduke Leventis, and the table was richer than usual. The young lady's father thanks the Archduke for coming despite his busy schedule. Well, he only said that he was sorry that he left them a grandson and most rarely visited them. The young lady's mother then asks him not to say that because their children have a new friend and it's just great, but the men say that he should thank them for the breed. After all, even if this boy brings trouble, they are always kind to him. The young lady's parents say that they are from, and Mikale is very well-mannered and also curious, so she thinks that this is wonderful at his age. Sweep then thanks the Duke for such words. And the main character is eating her food at this time, but suddenly she feels a gaze and wonders if it's Mikale. Well, when she raises her head, she sees that it is most likely Archduke Leventis. But when we look at him, the man just turns away in the other direction, and the little girl wonders if it was just her imagination. But she still thinks that before he turned away, he smiled at the corners of his mouth. Now the Archduke asks the young lady's father if he has thought of going to the capital in the near future. The man replies that yes, but the children are still small and he wanted to show up during the New Year festival, because if he doesn't come, he will upset His Majesty. The young lady's brother and sister are feeding her treats at this time, and the main character wonders if her father will really go to the capital, come to think of it. Last year, her parents left when she was kidnapped and were forced to urgently return, and after that day, they never went far. Mikale's grandfather is now thinking, and then when he puts down the cutlery, he claims that he doesn't think it's a good idea to go to the capital this time. The young lady's parents then ask if something happened. The man, after a short pause, claims that he has heard rumors from the palace. After this, there was silence at the table about the fact that Her Majesty was now in a position. The main character thinks, aren't people usually happy about such news? But looking at the faces of her parents, she sees that they are not happy at all now and wonders why their faces are so gloomy. The main character begins to use her powers and thinks that she should send Choco there. A little later, the young lady's mother is already kissing her on the forehead, and her brother too, as well as the little one with pink hair, after which she also kisses Mikale on the cheek and wishes everyone good night. The Archduke also bids everyone good night, and Michael bows to him as the pink-haired lady notices the man. He turns to his grandfather, and when he leans over, asking what it is. Then the little girl kisses him on the cheek and wishes him good night. The Archduke is a little surprised by this, and so are Mikale and his friend. The Archduke strokes the baby's head, and then he turns to the main character. And she thinks why the Archduke is looking at her like that, and does he really want a goodnight kiss from her too? Well, when she sees his gaze again, she understands that nothing can be done. Then she holds out her hands. The young lady's family then smiles and says that the youngest liked the Archduke too, after which the baby kisses her grandfather's cheek, which makes him smile. He also pats the girl on the head and says that this is probably why this boy likes her so much. But the main character thinks that according to this logic, shouldn't he like sister more, and she doesn't understand something at all. The brother and sister's rooms are on the second floor in the east wing, and hers are in the west, as is the guest bedroom. The young lady's brother and sister say goodbye to the baby and say that they will see each other tomorrow, and the boy also wishes Michael goodnight. The blonde man wishes them goodnight too and waves to them together with the main character, after which they head to their rooms, and the boy asks if this is the first time they will sleep together. The main character thinks that they are in different rooms, and the boy then asks if he can go to her if he is scared. But the girl just thinks, isn't it the other way around when they call him when it's scary, and is he really afraid of ghosts? A little time later, they are already at the door, and Mikale leans towards the baby, after which he asks if he can come to her to wish her good morning, and the little girl agrees, to which the boy is a little surprised and asks if she really allows it, and after that says that then he will definitely come and promises that he will not wake her up. The main character understands that he apparently really likes doing this, and the boy then asks if she can do the same for him. The main character asks what he is talking about, and the guy then talks about a goodnight kiss like she kissed her grandfather. The baby then thinks what this boy is talking about now. The boy continues and says that she kissed both Laurencia and Damien, and the main character thinks that this is because it is her brother's sister. Well, then the boy with puppy dog eyes asks if she really can't see he's not her family. The main character then, looking at him, thinks what kind of pitiful look is this, and the guy says that she has never done that. And the little girl then thinks that okay, and since a 6-year-old child is asking for this, who will she do it? After which she tells the boy to come over and he does so. And when the guy approaches her, the little girl kisses him on the cheek, and he wishes him good night, to which the young man sincerely smiles. After which they wish the little ones good night and say that they will see each other tomorrow. Then the main character is put to bed by the maid, and the main character thinks that she is certainly not such an obedient child who will immediately go to dreamland. After which she uses her powers and searches for where her parents and the Archduke are now. And looking into one room, she realizes that naturally they are alone in the living room. The main character mentally apologizes to her mom and dad for eavesdropping, and the man at this time says that this has been confirmed and Her Majesty is pregnant, and besides, he was told that she would give birth next spring. To which the young lady's parents are surprised and say that it is so soon, after which the Archduke claims that this is already the 5th month. The woman then says that she understands that 10 years have passed since they got married, but there has been no such news. And the Archduke at this time says that this is why the king prefers to remain silent, because they say that His Majesty's business is covered with ugly hair and shouldn't they prepare. The main character then does not understand what they are talking about and what kind of hair, and also what they mean in order to prepare. The baby also does not understand what is happening between the duchies and the royal palace. The Archduke claims that by the new year, the youngest will already be 3 years old, and it will be possible to go to the capital, but let them be careful, especially the Duchess. The main character at least thinks that they tried to maintain a good relationship with her family, but she doesn't understand why the current king could not ascend to the throne. Archduke claims that this is the reason why His Majesty inherited the throne. The idea is that the Duchess renounced the throne. The main character understands that her birthplace is the kingdom of Farshan, which cannot be called peaceful. And even her mother, before her marriage, was in the midst of a struggle for the throne with many heirs born of the previous king. While the brothers plunged each other into eternal sleep, her mother managed to survive the struggle for the throne, but she began to feel disgusted with the royal family, even though she was closest to the throne. But she left him and married the young lady's father. And thanks to this, her barely surviving and hiding half-brother Luxius became king. After listening to Choco, the main character realized that her mother's choice was right, and she doesn't know if Luxius thought about the shortcomings of his abilities, but he tried to maintain friendly relations with many aristocrats, and especially with the family of Duke Endovlan. He couldn't ignore the influence of the young lady's mother. After all, the Duchy of Endovlan was deeply rooted in the history of the Farshan kingdom, and my father personally participated in the war with the Empire several decades ago. The main character thought that only her family could keep the kingdom under control, but after hearing the story of Archduke Leventus, she became uneasy. The Archduke originally owned the Principality of Leventus, and his family received their title in exchange for unifying with the Farshan kingdom to contain the empire. Initially, the Archduke was addressed as His Highness a lot. When the king noticed this, the Archduke voluntarily refused such treatment. Their main character understands that it was thanks to him that the empire did not swallow up the kingdom, and they are in a stage of confrontation, and the man deserves better treatment. The main character thinks that if they are worried that the queen's pregnancy will change the relationship with Endevlen, what does it mean that the king is more ambitious than it seems at first glance, or is full of self-interest without visible talents? The baby thinks that in any case he will cause problems, but it doesn't matter because she will protect her family. The girl understands that she has already gone through these pleasant events dozens of times. In the 76th world, she was a maid of honor and an artificial player. But one way or another, it's all in the past. A short time later, it was the 4th day of Mikale and the Archduke's stay in the mansion. Mikale persistently asked her for a kiss with wishes of good morning and good night, but beyond that, she didn't answer him, but he still came of his own free will, and now the boy came again and said that morning training was coming soon, and then asked if they would play a little before it. The girl thinks that it's true why he likes her so much, after which the girl sighs. A little time later, the maid turns to her and says that no matter how much their youngest mistress resists today, she will have to dress beautifully because she is celebrating her master's birthday for the first time. The baby thinks that they misunderstood because that's not why she's unhappy, and one of the maids says that their mistress will look beautiful today. Another maid offers to look at her because this is her new dress for today. She asks if it is cute, and it is green, so Mr. will like it. The baby then only looks at them in surprise and wonders if she is being treated like a capricious child. She still cannot accept this fact and thinks that of course she loves her brother and is not being capricious, but about what the maid says, it's all because of that boy with the blonde hair. In contrast to her sister's birthday parties, her brother's birthday was relatively quiet. And the main character thinks whether parties also depend on the character of people. Mostly, the guy was given books and writing materials. Once again, someone approaches the guy and says that this is a collector's edition on theology sent by the Marquise in honor of his birthday, to which the boy expresses his gratitude. And the main character thinks that regardless of whether he liked the gifts or not, he accepted them as if his opinions did not matter. Suddenly, the guy's mom puts her hand on her husband's shoulder and then invites Damien to go out for a while. The boy then asks if they should go out, but then he still listens to his mother and they go outside. The main character, when she sees her brother's gift, is a little surprised, and then smiles and sighs. After all, the little girl thinks that, as expected from her parents, they have prepared a wonderful gift. The boy asks with admiration if they will really give him this, and he sees a pony in front of him. The father replies that, yes, he did say that his ride pillowcases have improved significantly, after which he also tells the boy to take good care of the pony, and the guy says that of course he also learned this diligently from the knights. Mikale and his grandfather are watching this, after which the boy with blonde hair says that he likes big horses better, and his grandfather, without even looking at him, says that he knows. The main character, hearing all this, cannot understand whether their relationship is good or bad. After that, she learned that the Archduke and Mikale would stay in the duchy until the sealing festival, and during this time, she managed to get a little closer to the Archduke. He often visited the baby and asked the younger duchess if he could hug her. The next day he came again and asked if he could hug her, so the main character understands that the Archduke looks an awful lot like Mikale. But today is the last day. On the morning of the sealing festival, the main character thinks that they will leave when they donate to the temples. But they also called a priest to illuminate the Duke's residence. But suddenly, the main character sees that Mikale looks a little puzzled and wonders what's wrong with his facial expression. When the priest arrives, he gets out of the carriage and is informed that they have arrived in the Duchy of Endevlen. The man just tisks and says he hates coming there. The Duke thanks Togo for arriving and also thanks for the illumination of the residence, and the man only says that it is their duty, after which he turns around and approaches the box. Asking if their donations are for what, the man answers yes. The main character thinks why he is counting money so openly, and he is a very unpleasant man. A little while later, the priest replies that the lighting is over, and the mansion is so big, so it was a little difficult, so he asks if he can ask for a cup of tea. The Duke replies that, of course, and the main character thinks that since today is a holiday, it seems that the parents are trying to act friendly. But they definitely don't like this priest, and he still ignores the Leventis family. But then the priest still looks at them with a look of complete disgust, and then comes closer. He asks if they have prepared gifts, and the Archduke says that, of course, after which the servant opens the box. The man says it's good that they didn't forget to honor God, and the Archduke claims that naturally, as a person living in this territory, he could not forget. The priest then says that it is true and God is always watching him closely. And the main character understands that she thought her first impression was wrong, but he goes beyond all boundaries. And so he simply says that he is keeping an eye on the Archduke, but the little girl still doesn't understand why they calmly tolerate such an attitude. The priest only extends his hand to Michael's head and says that the temple cannot help but notice the Archduke's conscientiousness, after which he begins to use his power, and the main character wonders if he's crazy. After all, Mikale has magical power that has not yet formed, and if energy is brought into him in this way, then because of the overflowing mana, it will be very, very painful for him. When the priest finishes using his power, he says that the boy still cannot accept the power, and someday the day will come. When will God take care of the younger Duke? Mikhail's grandfather just puts his hand on his shoulder, and the main character thinks that no matter how strong the influence of the temples in the kingdom is, can a priest really allow such a disrespectful attitude towards the Archduke? And those words about His Majesty's body being covered with ugly hair seem to make sense now. The baby understands that this is not their family's business, but these people have become like relatives to her, and it was the priest who tortured them before her eyes. Now the priest claims that this is good tea, and the main character is wondering whether she should just watch a man earn money in such ways. The priest says that this tea is wonderful, just like the donations to the temple, and he laughs nervously and says that's true. At this time, the baby understands that she cannot do this, and we need to find out what he believes in, and also why he acts this way with this power. Anastasia thinks that he won't leave so easily, and then uses her power, causing the mug to fly out of the man's hands. And then he spills hot tea on himself at the same moment, jumping up from his seat and screaming that it's hot. The young lady's mother immediately screams for the maid to quickly bring cold water, and she agrees. The priest only says that enough is enough, and his work is over. Therefore, as a servant of God, he must return. But at this time, the maid is offended with a bucket of water. Then he catches him on the priest. Everyone just silently watches this, and the young lady's mother then closes her baby's eyes, red with anger from such humiliation, after which he leaves and says goodbye to them. Well, the main character thinks that she is not finished yet, and then the priest slips and falls. Goethe, when she asks if he is okay, and the man just says that everything is fine. After which he turns around and says to call them at any time if needed, because God does not turn away from those who believe in him. The main character then thinks, will he really demand money again? But this man is driving her crazy. The baby understands that she did not intend to do this, but still uses her power again and summons the wind. After this, the man's hair immediately flies into the distance, making him turn pale. The main character understands that this pilot will be the first to fly to God, and the priest falls to his knees and screams. The little girl smiles at this time and thinks that the stingy one pays twice. When the priest finally leaves, they can all hold back their laughter thinking about his bald head. The Duke asks why someone who so sincerely worships the Lord hides this fact, and the Archduke says that he heard that in the past they deliberately shaved the top of the head and left hair only on the sides, which is why the main character can't help but laugh. Well, suddenly a young man with blonde hair turns to her and asks if he can take the baby's hand. The main character, looking at Mikale, thinks that, fortunately, everything is fine with him now. But this is the first time she has seen such a worried face on him, after which she takes the guy by the hand, and he, with a smile on his face, asks if she decided to take it first, and after that Mikale says that's what the priest did. Others have done the same thing several times, and they say that they cleanse him this way, but he doesn't like it because it upsets and hurts. The main character then thinks in shock what kind of purification this is, because if you introduce the sacred power of a person so randomly, then he will definitely be hurt. And for Mikale, who has magic, this is tantamount to violence. And the boy then says that today the priest found himself in unpleasant situations, and for some reason it seems to him that it was because the little girl was nearby. The main character then thinks if he felt her magic, and perhaps he has more powers than she thought. But the guy then tells the little girl what he thinks, When he is next to her, everything is fine with him. The main character then understands that most likely the reason why Mikale continued to be sad and distant is that unfair things were done to him under the pretext of his fate, and all this time she saw herself in him. Now the main character holds his hand and says that everything will be fine. The girl thinks that she will protect Mikale and nothing if another person appears whom she needs to protect. The guy hearing this just smiles and thanks the baby. A short time later, the Archduke claims that it is already the end of the year, and they are probably very busy before their trip to the capital. Well, the young lady's parents say that there won't be many applications for participation in the program this year. The guy's grandfather says that this is true and it's the same with them, but he just doesn't know whether there will be people willing to participate in this with Mikale. The main character understands that the Archduke is still worried about whether Mikale will be chosen. The program is that the nobles bring their children to their peers to spend time together, and this is one of the charitable programs of this world that provides educational opportunities and payment in exchange for carrying out any assignments, and this is a kind of work for the students. There have been dozens of applications to join her brother and sister in this program, and that's not a bad thing. But it turns out that there are many more people who avoid Mikale. Someone turns to the younger Duchess, and it turns out to be the Archduke. He offers the little girl a hug goodbye, to which she agrees, after which the man takes the baby in his arms and says that she is still a hammer, and perhaps she does not like this boy, but he will be glad if the baby gets attached to him. The main character agrees and thinks that the Archduke is not without flaws, but he is very worried about Mikale. Then the man enters the carriage and says goodbye to them, and the boy also waves to the baby. The girl thinks it was a good meeting. After that, due to preparations for the New Year's ball, time flew by and the parents dealt with many things. They chose, too, to participate in the program with their brother and sister and did not forget to provide a bonus to the services at the end of the year. Within a month, things were completed and the first week of December arrived, after which they went to the capital and now the little girl asks her mother why Dad left without them. And the woman replies that Dad is a duke and he has a lot to do, so he left earlier. And they are still small and driving fast can make them sick. The lady with pink hair then says that's a shame. After which it gradually begins to get dark and everyone in the carriage falls asleep. The main character understands that there are knights nearby, but it's still worth putting up a protective barrier, after which she does so. The animals that saw the protective barrier did not dare to attack, and fortunately, 3 weeks of travel passed without any incidents. Now the knight claims that it is. Surprisingly, not a single animal came out, and another said that their swords would rust. A little time later, the children's mother reports that the capital is already beginning to be visible, and the little girl with pink hair asks if this is true. The main character looks outside and thinks that the wind in the capital is cool but calm. But she doesn't understand where she got such a familiar, strange feeling and premonition that a lot of trouble will happen. The woman tells the children that this is her homeland, and the main character understands that it seems there will be a lot of interesting things there. A short time later, the kids are already dressed in winter clothes and tell their mother that they are ready. The woman then says how cute they are and then offers to go admire the city because the streets are beautiful at the end of the year. The main character realizes that her mother is there for the first time in a long time, and she seems very excited. But this is an ordinary carriage, not like a ducal one, and Mom even put on a hat covering her face, so the little girl wonders if they are just going for a walk. At this time, the young lady's mother turns to Anastasia and then takes her out of the carriage. On the shopping street of the capital, there were many large stores incomparable to theirs. The little girl with pink hair told them to look at Asia's favorite tiger cub, and the boy claimed that Anastasia liked the tiger that he gave her better. The baby's mother then suggested going to this store, and the main character wondered if this was an ordinary store. Since she lived in harsh conditions, she thought that every action had its own purpose, but now they are already in the 4th room with clothes. And the little girl with pink hair shows her mother the ribbon and offers to buy it. The woman then says that they have already bought 2, and the main character thinks that Lara uses polite speech only in such moments, and it's very cute. And the baby at this time says that this ribbon is not for her, and her mother asks who it is for. After this, the lady with pink hair, whose gaze sparkled piercingly, took a step forward and fixing her gaze on Asia, said that this was for her. After all, she most likely also dreams of the same ribbon, but she doesn't have the courage to ask. and as an older sister, Asya understands that she must take care of her and make her happy. The main character, looking tenderly at her sister, thought how commendable it was that she, being so young, had already achieved so much. The baby, innocently batting her eyelashes, looked pleadingly at her mother, as if praying that all these tempting toys and sweets would miraculously end up in her hands. The saleswoman in the store then tells the lady that the little girl with pink hair has such a kind soul, and she will give it away at a low price, so let them take it. And the main character then thinks that she will have to thank her sister for the beautiful red ribbon that she will give her. And the saleswoman at this time says that mother is probably happy to have such loving children, and their duchess claims that she is happy that they are growing up safely. And the woman working in the store then claims that it would be nice if His Majesty had a child. The main character listens and thinks, isn't it known that the queen is pregnant? After all, rumors from the palace, of course, can slowly reach ordinary people, but it is known that next spring the Queen of Rockets and everyone should know about it. Well, she doesn't think that Archduke Leventus deliberately spread false information because he always believed it was important to share only verified information and sought to maintain trust among his subjects and allies, after which they all leave the store. But the young lady's brother, when he looks at his mother's face, sees that she is worried about something. He asks his mother about this and she just smiles and says that it's nothing like that, and she just hasn't been there for a long time. The main character, looking at her mother and her excited expression, thinks that she is most likely worried about the queen's pregnancy, but the baby does not understand what the problem is. After that, they also went to other stores, but no one spoke about the situation in the royal family. But this is the long-awaited news about the child, so the baby does not understand why they are hiding it. However, while the question remains unanswered, time has flown by and the New Year's ball has arrived. Now a woman says that His Highness even called the children at such a late hour. Looking at her kids, she wonders what the young man with pink hair is up to. A short time later, it is reported that the family of the Duke of Endovlan has arrived. All the people in the hall admire and say that the princess has finally arrived in the capital, because so much time has passed and they really wanted to meet, and they also sent an invitation last year and the year before. The main character thinks that it is. Surprisingly, everyone in the room is friendly for some reason, but her mother is the only one who has been awarded the title of princess. However, it is strange that she is still called that, and not duchess, because she long ago married the Duke of Endovlan. The woman claims that the children are still small, so they were originally going to arrive only in a few years, but the women tell her not to say that. One of them claims that she thought that she would not be able to see babies who looked like the princess and the duke for a long time, but she was upset by the princess's words. The baby understands that although they belong to the duke's family, they are still children, and they are treated the same as members of the royal family. And the little girl wonders if the aristocrats still don't know about the queen's child. Well, suddenly in the hall they report that the reconciler of magic and divine power, Sovereign Farshan, His Majesty King Luxius, Her Highness the Queen, has arrived. The main character then looks at the king and thinks that now they will see what he is up to. The man claims that he sees that everyone has arrived, and of course it is an important day, after which he looks at us at my wife, who is pregnant and claims that today everyone should bow to the kingdom of Farshan.